filtered down through the department stores and then trickled on down into some tragic casual corner where you no doubt fished it out of some clearance bin. However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs. And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film, we explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, host, voiceover artist down here in San Diego, California, and excited to be revisiting this film, Steve, especially right after we did Whiplash.
I know. This is the crazy thing. The film, of course, is The Devil Wears Prada, and we scheduled this because The Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out, and I'm really excited we're doing it. We never scheduled it. We didn't think at all about the fact that it was Whiplash into The Devil Wears Prada, right. Two movies about abusive bosses in their own way. Strangely enough, both starring characters named Andy. I mean, it's really weird. And so I cannot, as we discuss this, I'm not going to be help comparing Fletcher to Miranda Priestly. It's just, it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? And Andy to Andy, right?
Andy to Andy,
What they experience in the throes of their respective bosses in their movies, for sure.
Yeah. But we couldn't be doing any of these analysis of films without our incredible supporters on Apple Podcasts and on Patreon. This came up, Devil Wears Prada, in a conversation with our advisory board. That is the best way for you to affect the course of the Cine-Files. And, of course, that's where you can also hear ad-free versions of the show, as well as our Cinephile shorts. And naturally, with The Devil Wears Prada 2 in theater, our next Cinephile short is going to be our review of The Devil Wears Prada 2. And the only place to hear that is on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. But what we're going to do, there's a free tier of Patreon, and we definitely occasionally put stuff there. And so for no money at all, if you want to hear that Devil Wears Prada 2 on review on Patreon, you can just go to patreon.com/the Cine-Files and sign up for the free tier, and it'll be there for you.
Yeah, give you a little taste, a little nibble of what you get if you subscribe to the Patreon and get those shorts every week that we do. And sometimes we do 2 shorts a week. It's rare, but sometimes we do them. And sometimes they're 10 minutes, sometimes they're 30 or 40 minutes. So you get very much a big bang for your buck. And another way to support us, of course, for those of you who don't have the ad-free and you listen to the ads of our show when you're listening to our show, if you could, if there's a product or service that you hear that you want to try out, if you could use our code when you hear us talking about these products and services, that gets you a big discount, and it signals to the people who sponsor us here on the show to keep coming back every month to sponsor our show. People like the folks over at Quince, BetterHelp, Hims, and True Diagnostic. Those are some of the ads you're going to hear on our show currently. And of course, we've had so many other clients who've come through. So please make sure if you hear something you like or you want to try out a product or service from them, make sure you use our code so you get some big money off, and they'll keep coming back to support us here on the show.
So, John, I feel like when we started the Cine-Files, like we had kind of set a goal for ourselves of we want to be the definitive deep dive into movies in the world, exploring every great film that has ever been made. And the longer we've done this, the more I have realized that this is a Sisyphusian task that we can never, in fact, do all the movies we really want to do. And I want to give you a perfect example of this, which is The Devil Wears Prada. Believe it or not, in having done several hundred films, is the first Meryl Streep movie the Cine-Files has ever done.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is surprising. That is very surprising.
Shocking and terrible.
Yes. And what an indictment on us.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
We're not other people who try to not admit when they've made a mistake. We will step up and take ownership of the fact that we have made an error here in this being our first Meryl Streep movie, because there's about 20 other films that you could do with Meryl Streep that would be amazing for us to cover. But it's just the way it goes sometimes, for sure.
I mean, it's just we're scheduling movies for various reasons. I don't think it's not that we picked bad movies instead or bad actors or bad artists. It's just that we have omitted this, and I feel terrible about it, particularly because I think there is an argument to be made that not only is Meryl Streep unquestionably one of the top 10 greatest actors, male or female, ever to work in film, but I would probably put her in the top 5, if not the top 3. I think I've never seen Meryl Streep bad. And I think the range of Meryl Streep is unbelievably impressive. And we've talked about Spielberg or Billy Wilder or Kurosawa, who made great work over a whole long career. Meryl Streep is still making great work. Like from the 70s to today, she is unquestionably, to me, one of the greats.
This is a challenging statement that you're making.
I know it is.
First of all, I agree with you that she is one of the greats. I don't think anybody with a brain that functions correctly could tell you that she's not one of the greats. As we've had our debates in the past before, subjective versus objective, I think you can say objectively she is. It's the rare moment where I will say.
Wait, you're saying she is objectively? I mean, I agree.
Objectively, one of the greatest actors ever, regardless of gender. I don't know if I put her in the top 3 because that to me means that where do you put Katharine Hepburn? Where do you put Bette Davis? So this is an interesting conversation to have because is it all women in the top 3 or is it 2? No. Are you putting that? Is she the only representative in the top 3? This is interesting stuff.
I am going to cut off this conversation exactly because this is a Cinephile short.
Oh, probably.
Like, this is exactly, I want to have this conversation with you, and that's the right. And I'll tell you what, we just said we put the Devil Wears Prada 2 review on the free tier. If we do a conversation about how we would come up with the greatest actors ever to work in film, let's put that on the free tier too, and people can take a listen to it because I think this is a hell of a conversation to have. But what I will say is, I'll just say what I already said. She's never not good. Her range is incredible, and her ability to inhabit vastly different people is right up there with me, with Daniel Day-Lewis and Robert De Niro and the people that we consider the greatest actors ever to be on film.
Yeah, Brando, Pacino, for sure.
Brando, I mean, I think
I put her in top 10. I don't know if I'd put her in top 5, but I definitely would put her in top 10 for sure. Yeah.
So because we've never talked about it, I want to give the briefest of rundowns of her career because her career could easily be a whole show. But she's born in 1949 in New Jersey. Man, New Jersey overproduces. There are for the size of its population, the number of great people who come out of New Jersey, including my ex-wife, is very, very impressive. She debuts on Broadway in 1975, has her first Tony nomination for 27 Wagons Full of Cotton the next year in her second professional play.
Wow.
She apparently never intended to act in film. She always just wanted to do theater until she saw a little movie called Taxi Driver and the performance of Robert De Niro. And she went, oh, that's what I want to do.
Right.
Her second movie, she gets Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor, Best Actress, I think, for Deer Hunter. And that's in 1978. 1979, she wins Best Supporting Actress for Kramer versus Kramer. And then I'm just gonna list the nominations and Oscars because it's crazy. 81, French Lieutenant's Woman, nominated for Best Actress. 82, Sophie's Choice, won for Best Actress. 83, Silkwood, nominated. Out of Africa in 85, nominated. 86, Heartburn, she's nominated. 87, Ironweed, she's nominated. 88, Cry in the Dark, she's nominated. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row she's nominated for Best Actress. Then, we have to break. We miss 89. How she didn't get nominated, I don't know. Nominated for Postcards from the Edge, a movie that people don't talk about enough because it's really fun and she's great and it's a comedy. Then, again, just sticking with nominations, skipping a bunch of interesting movies. Bridges of Madison County, she's nominated in 95. 98 for One True Thing. 18, Music of the Heart. 2002, Adaptation. 2002, same year, In the Hours. In 2006, she's nominated for this film, Devil Wears Prada. In 2008 for Doubt. 2009 for Julia and Julia. Wins in 2011 for The Iron Lady. Nominated again for August Osage County. Into the Woods, The Post. And that's 21 nominations, 3 wins. She is the record holder by far for nominations. The next closest is Hepburn and Nicholson with 12. Hepburn won 4 times, so she's in the lead for wins. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Like defending your life that you and I both love. There's, she shows up in, I don't know if you watch Only Murders in the Building.
Yep.
She shows up in a full comedy and she is a fucking delight. There's all sorts of other stuff that she's done. That is just an unbelievably impressive acting career.
Yeah, and you went through so many that you left off Florence Foster Jenkins, where she was nominated for that as well in 2016. So, like, you're right. So many different nominations, so many different types of movies that she was a part of, so many different roles, supporting or lead as well. And then what you say as well, that there's so many other films that she wasn't nominated for that we've enjoyed watching her in over the years. But I'll say this, if this is a first film we talk about Meryl Streep, this is an iconic performance that has endured the test of time, so much so that the film itself, the sequel, is doing so well overall because of the thirst that people had to see Meryl Streep back in here as Miranda Priestly. And so there's so much amazing energy about her as an actress. And when you see her being interviewed and with the way she talks about acting, there's a real understanding of the craft and also a real non-serious approach to the craft, which I think is so essential. If you guys want to watch a recent interview, there was an interview with her and Anne Hathaway and Emily Blunt for the junket for Devil Wears Prada 2. And she's sitting there and she goes, I never know what I'm going to do before I walk out onto the set. And I just I know the lines, I read the lines, but I just kind of sit there and like just flow in what is happening. And I never know if I'm going to get it right or wrong. And you could see Anne and Emily like literally crumbling inside because they probably spend so much time going over the lines and poring over the things and, where's the beats? What motion am I supposed to play here? All these kinds of things. But the thing is with Meryl, there are just certain people that are effortless in what they do. They're so talented. And it seems like she has that thing that she understands that it's almost like breathing for her, but she doesn't take it too seriously. And it doesn't have to be Kevin Costner lecturing people standing up at Actors Studio. She just rolls with it. And she respects the muse or the energy of her talent so much that she just flows with it and trusts that it'll get her to where she needs to get to. And clearly from all the nominations you listed and wins you listed, she's absolutely right in trusting that,
I just don't think I've ever not believed her, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and this is,
maybe,
and it's not
I
like
mean, maybe She-Devil, but maybe that's the only one with it. Roseanne Barr,
I mean, She-Devil is a terrible movie. That's definitely true. But like, it would be, that would actually be interesting to really to study Meryl Streep's performance in She-Devil and to see if you don't believe it. Like
that's all you.
know,
That's all you. I'm not.
Nah, I never watched. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen some other lesser ones. Yeah, I mean, she's incredible. I look forward to doing some of those other movies on the Cine-Files. They're all a whole bunch of Cinephile worthy movies, and I would like to formally apologize to Meryl Streep for ignoring her incredible career for as long as we've doing the show. It's entirely on us, but I'm glad that we're finally jumping into this now.
Agreed.
So how did you first come to The Devil Wears Prada?
Well, I'm pretty sure it was with our crew way back then because it was 2006? When was this film come out?
2006.
2006, yeah. So I'm pretty sure it was with our crew, going to see it there, probably at the Grove or maybe even over at Century City. I don't have a specific recollection of that, but I do remember liking the movie very much and being surprised because I'm not into fashion. I'm not into these type of movies because it feels very female centric. So I don't know I wasn't really the audience for this, but I went along because it's Meryl and it was Anne and I liked the trailer and I'm a big fan of Stanley Tucci. But I have to say, this is one of my favorite films from that year. And every time I watch it, I am just even more clear of how good a film this is. So I'm excited that we're talking about it here on the show.
It's funny, how I came to it is exactly the same, which is I know I saw it in the theater, but I cannot remember the exact circumstance. I went in feeling exactly the way you did and walked out feeling, I think, exactly the way you do, which is I really like that. And I think this is the really good movies that take you into a world manage to make that world super interesting to you, even if that's not your world. whether it's the
Yeah.
world of the jazz band in Whiplash or
Yeah.
going into, you know, Goodfellas and Casino, where Scorsese brings you into those worlds so beautifully. It's like
Yeah.
that. And that's what this movie did for me. I'm obviously, as anyone who's hung around with me knows, I'm the farthest thing from a fashion person, but they made that fashion world fascinating and compelling for me. And that's what you have to do.
Yeah, they filled it with characters that are very interesting that could have been one-dimensional. This could have been a very surface-level movie, but there's so much more going on in the life of all of these characters, the inner life that comes out in these exchanges, that I think makes the film a cut above these kinds of movies, you know?
And I think, you know, this all starts with the book, the novel by Lauren Weisberger, who had worked at Vogue as an assistant to Anna Wintour. And Anna Wintour is someone we're definitely going to have to talk about quite a bit because she, of course, is the model for Miranda Priestly. And after she left her job, she sat down to write her experiences. And she got recommended to this guy who I'd never heard of before. His name's Charles Salzberg. And Charles Salzberg he's a known writer, but he's also really known as a mentor. He's someone who people come in when they're trying to write their book, and there are a lot of famous people, from my understanding, many of whose names are not out there, who have kind of gone through the process with her. So this guy helped Laura Weisberger to finish the book, and she sent it. She was very disciplined. She wrote 15 pages a day, didn't know what to do with it. It sounds like the first agent she talked to, who sold her first manuscript in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. As a person who has been busting my ass for 30 plus years and has never had an agent do anything remotely like that, or even frequently return my calls, I feel like she really scored on this. And not only that, but it was having read only 100 pages of the manuscript, the film rights were bought by Fox the same year. This is 2003. So that happens real fast. Wendy Finerman, who is producer on Forrest Gump, The Fan, Drumline, P.S. I Love You, comes on to produce, and things are all, you know, full steam ahead, ready to go, except for the big thing that they're scared of is Anna Wintour. Because Anna Wintour was the editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine, and then became the editor-in-chief of the entire Condé Nast empire, which is what Elias Clark is, you know, based on. And she knew about the book and was not a fan. And they were, let's just say, scared shitless, as everyone in the movie is, of because this is a huge publishing house. And not only that, but she has access to every designer, every model, and none of them want to cross her. And in order to make this movie, you know what you need? A lot of designers and a lot of models. So all the sources that they know they were going to have to go to make the film are exactly what Anna Wintour could sabotage if she so chose. So let me tell you just a little bit about her. She's born the same year as Meryl Streep, 1949. Wow. She's born in London. Her father was the editor of the London Evening Standard. So she grew up, you know, print ink was in her veins, as they say. And then it's just a meteoric rise through all of the fashion magazines, starting at Harper's Bazaar, finally taking over Vogue in 1988. She's the person who really transformed Vogue by putting celebrities on the covers, by making it high fashion part of popular culture. And she is, from everything I've heard, many times scarier than Miranda Priestly is in this movie. This is a hugely powerful person, very much against the book. And as we'll find out, this movie was totally good for her. It did nothing but improve her position in the world, even though she's characterized as someone who's definitely not very nice.
Well, it's funny how you can be portrayed by one of the greatest actors of our generation, or our lives, really, and it can help your image overall. So, yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who didn't even know who Anna Wintour was until they saw this movie. There's a lot of Andys out there, and I'm talking first few scenes Andy, who didn't know who Anna Wintour was until they saw this movie. And I include myself in that mix. I didn't know who she was till I saw the movie and saw interviews about her, and then realized, oh, okay, so this is who that is. The person I've been seeing with big sunglasses and bangs, that's who this is. So, yeah.
I mean, I think I had heard the name. That's it, you know.
Mm.
So they have the book. They're looking for a director, and they bring in David Frankel. Now, David Frankel had made Miami Rhapsody. He'd made a few episodes of Entourage, and we're obviously going to see someone from Entourage in here. And I think most importantly is he had directed a bunch of episodes of Sex and the City. And I think that's the calling card, is that because Sex and the City, obviously female-oriented, New York, super involved in fashion. Like, so that really makes sense in terms of why they were interested in him. And he basically looked at it, met with Finerman, the producer, and went, I don't like this movie. It's just too mean to Miranda. And he goes to his agent and he tells that to the producer, like, look, I just don't think I can get behind this. And says, sorry, goes to his agent, says, look, I turned it down. It's not something I think I can do. And the agent said, I got a call basically from the producer. She loves what you said. That's why she wants to hire you. And this is the thing. I think, you know, I did read the book, The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to put it on the highest list of books that I enjoyed that I've read for the Cine-Files. There are a lot of books that I've read for this show that are, you know, like the book for Oh God, or the book for Being There, were not books that I thought were particularly good, that were transformed into really good movies.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, when people see that best adapted screenplay category in the Oscars, not that this was nominated for it, and they wonder, well, how'd they do it? I think seeing what was in the book and seeing how they changed it is a good example of because this is an okay book. Like, if I were a person who was into fashion, and probably if I weren't a dude, that, like, I might have liked the book better. But it's just it's an okay first novel, and maybe her other books are better, but it's not a great book. But what they do with the book structurally is what really makes this a good movie. And the first thing is understanding that the book is just the Anna Wintour character, Miranda Priestly, is basically just a horrible person throughout.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. And so Frankel's first instinct that it was too mean to her is one of the keys to solving the problem of this movie.
Well, isn't that always the way it is? Anyone who's writing their book is always the hero of their own book, and everyone else is the mean person or the person who's not that good. Or, you know, you turn them into a one-dimensional or two-dimensional villain without adding that extra dimension of making them real or relatable or vulnerable. And so I think Frankel's instincts here were just spot on. And listen, this is not a guy who has a big resume theatrically, even today. You know, a lot of his Collateral Beauty, Hope Springs, fine movies, nothing to write home about. But certainly Devil Wears Prada, I think, is his iconic film. And we'll, of course, do a short on the sequel, which I think is another one that's just not that great. But like this film itself is the crown jewel in his resume. But I think working TV is where you learn to understand how important it is to give dimensions and levels to some of these characters, because if these characters are going to keep coming back every week, you've got to give them, the audience, a reason to connect to them and want to follow them through these kinds of things. I think you can get away with one-dimensional characters more often in movies than you can in TV shows that are long-running and extensive. And so I think this is where his instincts were. He was the perfect guy at the right time for this movie to understand how to flesh out the Miranda Priestly character much more to make the audience connect to this character, because we've all had bosses like this, but how many of us have seen behind the veil of a boss like this and seen the humanity of a boss like this? And I think that's really one of the gifts of the movie and Meryl Streep's performance.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we have to get a writer. They ended up being 4 different writers who worked on the film. The first was Peter Hedges, who wrote the first draft. He had written What's Eating Gilbert Grape, About a Boy, Pieces of April. Weren't happy with that script. They bring Paul Rudnick in, who had written Sister Act, Addams Family Values, and In and Out. He mostly worked on Miranda scenes. Then they have Don Ruse come in, did a rewrite. And then finally, and by the way, he's single white female. He'd written The Opposite of Sex and Marley and Me. And then finally, they bring in Aline Brosh McKenna. And I am not of the opinion that you need female writers to write women characters or male writers to. I believe people can write different things, because that's what writers have to do. Frequently, you have men and women and old people and young people, and you've got to write all the characters. But it is crazy to me that they hire 3 male writers before bringing in a female writer for The Devil Wears Prada. I mean, it just doesn't. It's like, why? And I'm not saying they're not great writers, but like for this particular movie, I mean, this is a woman's movie. I mean, this is, it's like,
Yeah.
It's just shocking to me that it took them that long. And she's the person who really cracked the story.
Of course.
And the first thing that she said when she came in was the movie really was about Andy and about her friends and about Miranda and about all these things. And she said, no, this has to be focused on Andy and Miranda. That is what the movie is about. And so she cut out a lot of stuff. She framed it differently. And then the plot, working with Frankel, really got restructured to really hit the emotional points. And we'll talk about that as we go through the thing.
Yeah, very smart approach. And yeah, listen, we're not saying that only women can write women-centric or women-focused films, but in certain situations, it is important to have a person who has a little extra nuance into the situation, or more nuance into the situation, and can flesh out these characters. And yes, a lot of female writers can do that with female-centric films better than men, some of the male writers that are out there. It doesn't mean that male writers haven't written great female characters in the course of time. Of course they have. But with certain subjects or certain films or TV shows, it is important to get a woman's point of view overall on these things. So yeah, it's no surprise that it went this way. And it's no surprise that they went to a bunch of men first. Because, back then in the early 2000s, it was very much a male-centric dominated entertainment industry that has changed a little bit over the last 20 years. But certainly that's the way it was back then.
So I'm going to talk about something I don't usually talk about in pre-production, but I thought it was so important, I wanted to bring it up here, which is the costumes, wardrobe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because this is as jazz is to Whiplash, fashion is to The Devil Wears Prada, and you have to get it right. If they didn't pull off the clothes in this movie, and this is the thing too, like, I've said many times that I looked for every single kung fu movie I could find when I was younger. I was obsessed with them. And I was looking, because I'm a huge martial arts fan, at the martial arts and judging the quality of the martial arts. Well, there are a whole bunch of people that absolutely love high fashion, and they're coming to this movie the way I came to a kung fu movie. And so you got to get it right. Like it's not, and of course you have Anna Wintour possibly telling every designer and model in New York that if you work with this movie, I will never put you in any of our magazines ever again. Right. That is denied by her spokesperson, but it is a rumor that she said that. And so how we're going to do this is a big deal. So Patricia Field is the costume designer. Mm-hmm. I listened to the commentary track. I would say she's in the commentary track.
Oh,
I would say 50% of the commentary track is just talking about the clothes.
Wow.
Like they're in all of them. It's not just the costume designer. They're like, oh, she's wearing Donna Karan. That's Calvin Klein. That's Chanel, whatever it is. They're very involved. What's crazy to me, and by the way, I should say that Patricia Field was the wardrobe person on Sex and the City. So she was in this world, worked with David Frankel. The initial costume budget for this movie is $100,000. Now, I cannot begin to tell you how tiny that is for this film. Like I saw that number and I'm like, that's nuts. Because there are many, many dresses in here that are probably $10,000 dresses, So that's 1/10 of the costume budget. It ends up that the designers didn't quite listen to Anna Wintour. A lot of costumes did get donated or loaned out, because that's what they would do, is these houses would loan these things out. It's speculated that there are probably $3 to $4 million worth of wardrobe used in this film on their $100,000 budget.
I'm not surprised. I mean, some of the costumes are really amazing to see on these characters, especially when Andy makes that change. But just look at the closets of space that Stanley Tucci goes in when he's picking out the outfits for her, and those are just hanging on a rack. They're not even being used, but they're you see them as you're going through that sequence. And so it's important for the eagle-eyed fashion people to look at a rack there and immediately can tell if you're trying to trick them with the kind of stuff that would be at a place like Runway hanging on the rack. So the authenticity of it all is really important. And no surprise, Patricia Field also a New York City costume designer as well, did Spin City as well. So understanding the energy of New York, the look of New York, the fashion that combines with the city of New York, I think all of that, she was the perfect choice for being the costume designer for this. And it shows throughout the whole movie. And as a guy who, as I said, not really into fashion that much, when those changes happen, you recognize that. You're like, wow, this is amazing fashion. This is incredible the way this looks, and so it's just like, to me, fashion is like food. I'm not a foodie in any way, shape, or form. I can cook for myself, right? But I don't know how to look at combining the spices and all. But when I watch people do that, when I watch some of these cooking shows, I am just in awe watching these people put stuff together, find the right spices, combine these flavors. I'm like, how the fuck do you even think to do that? But it's something that comes instinctually and naturally to a lot of people. I think fashion and cooking have a lot of things in common with how they approach their overall dishes or overall products,
I had the exact same thought. And it was funny. I was thinking about, to me, it's the same thing in like a movie like The Menu. You need to get the food right. Like you have to, the movie is over the top and ridiculous and insane, but they clearly know a lot about the restaurant, the high-end restaurant world,
Right. Yeah.
So it started shooting on September 17th in 2005, 57-day shoot in both Paris and New York. The budget is $35 million. And would you like to get into The Devil Wears Prada?
Let's do it.
We start off with the song Suddenly I See by Katie Tunstall, and we go right to a steamy mirror revealing the face of Anne Hathaway, who is brushing her teeth. And I would say it is as non-glamorous an introduction to a character as you can do.
Her face is a map of the world, is a map of the world.
Yeah, you mentioned this opening song here, Steve, by Katie Tunstall, Suddenly I See. This was, she's a Scottish singer, and this was I think her only big song, but it is a song about female power. So I think it makes a lot of sense to use this song here for the opening. And it was inspired. She said this in an interview. She was inspired. She got the idea for the song about when she saw Robert Mapplethorpe's photograph of Patti Smith on the cover of her album Horses.
Wow.
So there is a sense of there's an energy to this song that is perfectly chosen because we're about to see a film about female empowerment or finding your voice or finding your strength and standing out on your own. So it was a perfect choice for this opening of the movie.
Suddenly I see, this is what I wanna be.
To me, this whole opening has shades of The Secret of My Success. It's it feels very 1980s. I can almost hear Night Ranger's version of Secret of My Success as Michael J. Fox is coming from that country town to go be a part of New York. But this is the way to introduce us to Anne Hathaway, who at the time was becoming, a force in movies at the time, coming out of her younger phase, the Disney phase, all at the Elia Enchanted phase, and really trying to stake a claim for herself as an adult actress. And I think this is the wiping of the thing, starting into this and seeing the pulse of the city as all these different women are putting on their panties and getting dressed for their day. I think this is a great way to start with a dynamic pace for the movie, that's not going to let up till the end.
So they initially wanted Rachel McAdams, who was coming off of The Notebook and Mean Girls. That was their first choice. She turned it down. Next, they go to Kate Hudson, who had scheduling conflicts. Then they considered Kirsten Dunst, Natalie Portman, and Scarlett Johansson for this role. And it's so funny. It's like, I love Scarlett Johansson. I think she's great. I just don't see her in this kind of a role. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I think Rachel McAdams would have been the best choice overall that I would have gone with. I think she'd have been incredible in this role. But Anne Hathaway was the right choice overall when it was all said and done. These other actresses you mentioned, Kate Hudson, I don't think she's strong enough to have played this role. She could have done it. I don't think it would have had the same effect. And the same thing with Scarlett. I agree with you. Scarlett could have played it just fine. I don't think it would have had the resonance that Anne Hathaway brings to this. Because there's something about an underdog quality to Anne Hathaway. Yeah. And I think there was a hunger in her performance because, in a way, this was her film to prove that she belonged at the top of the A-list as an actress and someone to be reckoned with, just like Andy is trying to prove that in the movie. So I think there was something about the combo of both that made the energy of this film, even on a subconscious level, that you feel that there's a connection between Anne Hathaway and Andy that goes more than just actors playing a role, and I think that was essential to what we see in her performance.
Well, speaking of which, let me tell you how she got the gig, which is they're going after all these, coming up and coming actresses. They're all turning it down, scheduling conflicts. Anne Hathaway is actively saying, I want to play this part. She comes in, has a meeting with Carla Hacken, who is the executive who bought the property for Fox. She's sitting in her office, sitting, I think, on the desk or on the coffee table or something. Carla Hacken has a little Zen garden, as you do. And the Zen garden, I think, has a little rake and some sand. And as they're having their meeting, Anne Hathaway grabs the rake and draws in the sand, "Hire me."
Oh, wow.
And they do.
Well, it's better than getting that envelope full of glitter to make you want to hire somebody. So, yeah, for sure.
And what we're going to get is a really well done montage, one of several that happens in the film. And what this one is going to do is contrast our hero, Andy, with all of the models and how they are getting ready.
Right.
And seeing how just so different it is. And for me, at least, when I'm first watching it, like I see, Anne Hathaway brushing her teeth, and then I see someone like pulling up some sexy lingerie, and I'm like, oh, Anne Hathaway's getting dressed in sexy lingerie. And then I realized, no, that's not her. No, there are multiple people. And then we cut to Andy and her putting on her underwear, which is not the sexy lingerie. And this is the structure of the montage. We see the fancy models kind of ladies who we will come to know as the clackers, which is also how they're referred to in the book. Yeah. And then we will see that Andy is clearly not one of them.
We're showing that, already presenting her in a bit of an underdog state to going into this world of fashion, for sure. And we're thrust right into this, Steve. It's really interesting. There's no kind of build up. We're thrust right into this story and into this situation.
And it's the clothes, it's the makeup, it's the hair, it's the jewelry, it's every accessory. And we see the difference between everything perfectly put together and absolutely stunning, and Anne Hathaway, who's like a normal person putting on some clothes,
Yeah, regular clothes.
She kisses goodbye to her boyfriend from Entourage, Adrian Grenier.
Yeah.
I
don't know if you want. Do you want to say anything about this? If you want to say something, we can.
I don't mean to be insulting. I think he is an actor, is perfectly fine. He fits right. He was perfect in Entourage.
Yes.
And the character in Entourage, there wasn't really that much there. And most of his other performances, to me, are perfectly fine.
He's a perfectly fine actor who will never deliver this like career-defining, Oscar-nominating performance, but he does a good job here as her boyfriend, basically playing Adrian Grenier, which is what he's good at playing.
Yeah, exactly. And we see all the beautiful model type women heading out into the world, and we see Andy heading out of the world. We get another contrast, which is I love the women who are eating by counting a certain number of nuts. And then Andy goes and buys a big onion bagel, which of course is what I would do,
with cream cheese. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then she heads to this fancy building in New York in Midtown, and this is shot at the McGraw-Hill office building, which is doubling as Elias Clark. And of course, as I said, Elias Clark is doubling as Condé Nast, the huge publishing company.
Yeah, and I love that we see all the models taking taxis and she takes the subway. Again, these are these subtle things that are showing you she is our protagonist, she's our hero, and we, because a majority of the world is not in a high financial status, this is the person we're connecting to. And we're like, okay, I've been there. I know what it's like to walk into a room and be ridiculed or be seen as lesser than because of my fashion choices or my food choices or whatever. So there's a lot there that we can connect to.
And she shows up at the runway offices. I think this is actually the first day of shooting when she showed up there.
Okay.
Yeah. And you could see already their clothing racks moving around everywhere. Things are very busy. And Frankel and the producer and production designer did get into a bunch of fashion magazine offices in order to see how it worked and what it looked like. They were not allowed to go to Vogue. Needless to say, and yet somehow, and I have no idea how, they managed to sneak in, I think in the middle of the night, to see the actual Vogue offices, including Anna Wintour's actual office. Which, but I don't know what the circumstances are, but that is what I understand.
Hi, I have an appointment with Emily Charlton.
Andrea Sachs?
Yes?
Great.
And there is Emily Charlton, played by Emily Blunt.
To me, one of the best actresses we've had over the last few years since this movie, because this is pretty much the movie that announced her. And she went on to do a number of things, and she's been part of some really interesting and good films. And I think she's always delivered. You talk about Meryl Streep being believable in every role. I think Emily Blunt has made it work in everything she's been in, whether it's horror or romantic comedy or a role like this, which she rarely plays this kind of antagonistic role. And I think she was great. This is such a great announcement of her as an actress in this role.
So they auditioned over 100 actresses to play this part. They couldn't find the right person. Emily Blunt was a late decision. She's in London, gets the call from her agent, can you put something on tape? She had to put something on tape like that day because they were so desperate. So she didn't have time. She just went, I'm just going to do it in my British accent because I don't have time to come up with an accent for this stuff, the size I just got today. They saw it and they went, Emily's British. You know, she's not British in the script, but as soon as they saw her audition, and it sounds like the way that she played it, Emily is a character in the book. She's not terribly well developed, in particular in terms of having a character arc, which she does have in the movie. She really doesn't so much in the book. And so this is another element that they filled out.
And she wasn't that experienced. She'd only done like a couple of roles in British shows and I think one theatrical feature that wasn't that well received or watched. And so this was, a new hungry young actress that they were seeing. And so sometimes that's how it is, Steve. You just kind of get the notice and you're like, you got to put it on tape that day to get a shot at a possible career-changing role,
And the moment that she sees Andrea and her reaction, along with the reactions of everyone else in the office, is that what's so good about the moment is that we had that whole contrasting montage leading up to this. So we've already kind of been highlighted what we're talking about. But still, at least for me, Andy walking through New York looks like a person to me walking through New York. Like totally or did nothing out of the ordinary about her at all.
Totally.
And now, seen through Emily's eyes, she looks like a freak. And you're just, it feels so terrible for Andy in this moment of looking at all these models essentially and realizing how out of place she is.
But one of the things I like about Andy as a character throughout these opening sequences of the film is that she's very much herself. Like she is not someone. Yes, there are moments where she feels overwhelmed. There are moments where she feels emotional. And we get to that scene with her and Tucci where he's like basically giving her a reality check. She stays composed through the barbs, through the snide attacks, through the snarkiness. She stays composed. And I think that's a powerful decision acting wise for a character like this, because we could have seen Andy immediately wilt at the number of comments she gets from both Emily and Miranda here as she gets interviewed, as we're coming up to in the scene. So I like that about her in the first. It establishes her strongly and makes us want to cheer for her in the movie.
Human resources certainly has an odd sense of humor. Follow me.
And we do a walk and talk. And I think the walk and talks are key because part of what makes this movie work is the pace, is that we are always going to get information, exposition, new things that we have to do, new jobs, new stuff at a pace faster than we, the audience, can fully understand it, which gives us the feeling that Andy has walking into this space.
Also, Steve, you know this as a writer and a filmmaker. Like, we're giving background on the Andy character by the way she's dressed and the fact that she's walking in with a briefcase. We don't know she's graduated from Northwestern. We don't know she's trying to be a journalist. We don't know any of this, right? But seeing the way she's dressed, seeing her carrying this leather briefcase, there are little subconscious indicators to us that there's something else going on here, something more going on here. And that gets revealed as the movie unfurls itself.
Well, that's why the wardrobe and accessories and purses and shoes and hairstyles are critical to this film. They are telling a huge part of the story. Right. And we hear Emily say that she was the second assistant and now she's been promoted to the first assistant and has to replace herself.
Miranda sacked the last two girls after only a few weeks. We need to find someone who can survive here. Do you understand?
Yeah, of course. Who's Miranda?
Now, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Well, maybe you're going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
When I was young and stupid, I went into some meetings not 100% clear on who I am meeting with. Now that I am old and not quite as stupid, and the internet is very valuable, I have read articles and, bios and anything. If they appeared on a podcast, I listen to the podcast so that I have a sense of exactly who I'm going to meet. Because going into a meeting blind is dumb.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder, though, I mean, she's a graduate of Northwestern. She's graduated with a degree in journalism, is my assumption, as we see later with her father, and Stanford Law. So I would think that she would have done some research here, but it is a funny moment. And again, Andy is supposed to represent us because we're walking into this world completely new, a lot of us, as we're watching this movie. So it makes sense that she would ask who Miranda is. And it's a funny moment with Emily's reaction for sure.
Well, and in Andy's defense, some scenes have been cut. So the first one that's cut is that she actually showed up at the wrong building and had to rush across town to get to the correct building, then has a meeting with human resources for the whole Elias Clark organization that has a lot of different jobs. And then the human resources says, I have a place to send you, but doesn't tell her where they're sending her.
That is a massive difference with that. That gives much more context to that exchange. Oh, it's much more understandable in that context.
Well, but this is what happens in the editing room. The first thing, like one of the basic rules of filmmaking is that if you're trying to get to something, you want to get to it as soon as possible. And we want to get to Miranda as soon as possible. So that's the first reason that you cut it. But the other reason is if you had had that whole scene, you wouldn't have had the same reaction to who's Miranda.
Right. No, you're right.
Because our reaction is she's unprepared for the meeting rather than she got thrown into something quickly and didn't have time to find out what was going on.
Yep, good point.
Totally different emotional experience. But Emily certainly reacts to who's Miranda and says,
Oh my God, I will pretend you did not just ask me that. She's the editor-in-chief of Runway, not to mention a legend. You work a year for her and you can get a job at any magazine you want.
And then we hear a line we're going to hear over and over again.
A million girls would kill for this job.
Oh, boy, it sounds like a great opportunity. I'd love to be considered.
Andrea, Runway is a fashion magazine, so an interest in fashion is crucial.
What makes you think I'm not interested in fashion?
And Emily Blunt's reaction is, while looking at her clothes, is fantastic. And again, just to keep the pace up, rather than be in this moment, suddenly we get the message that Miranda is arriving early.
Oh my God. No, no, no!
And Emily panics. We see the Mercedes pull up just to give us the dread.
She's on her way. Tell everyone.
This is all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And in walks Stanley Tucci, who plays Nigel Kipling.
The Tooch! Such an essential part of this franchise. Yes, the ladies are certainly front and center, but I think you need that Stanley Tucci energy to make both of these movies work, the sequel and this one that we're talking about now. He's so good in this role. And of course, at this time, again, Tucci is a name, very big name. People have seen him as a lead, seen him as a character actor, and he's so great in the intro here as well. The little putting the hand up to cover, asking who is that. It's all just, it gives you an energy that this person is very ingrained at the magazine and is not short on comments, you know.
I will just say that in addition to loving Stanley Tucci, the actor, I just love Stanley Tucci, the person. He's a lovely, lovely person. And everything I see from him, I like. In fact, last night, literally, I'm looking around and I saw, there's a second season of his Italy show.
Yeah.
And so I watched an episode. So I was watching him eat a bunch of pasta and cheese in Italy last night. I adore him. And I think while Meryl Streep obviously steals this movie every time she's on screen, and as I said at the beginning, I think one of the great actors of all time, Stanley Tucci is such a clutch player. He is such a go-to person and always delivers exactly what is required at the level and place of whatever the part is, you know?
Just think of the limited scenes he had in Captain America: First Avenger, and can you really think of anyone else that would have brought that role across the finish line as well as he does before he becomes Chris Evans becomes Captain America? Not many actors could have delivered what he delivered with such pathos, which is what makes him great. You know,
totally agree. And him in Conclave is another one where it's totally different. So here are three different, totally different characters, and he delivers just completely on every single one of them. Nigel was another one who was very difficult to cast. Oh, wow. He's kind of a composite but there isn't really a Nigel in the book. There's a character I think named James, and there is a character named Nigel, and there's some other people, and this is sort of a composite. It sounds like they auditioned a lot of actual gay men working in the fashion industry. Oh. And then some of them said, and they even brought in, and this just seems so bizarre to me, they brought in Graham Norton to audition for the part
Oh.
of Nigel.
I could see that.
And it's a bunch of the people for the fashion industry who were brought in felt like it was kind of a bullshit audition and they had really just been brought in as research just to see what they're like. My guess is that's not true. But basically, you know, they went to Stanley Tucci, I think 2 days before they started shooting.
Wow.
Yeah. So he came in at the very last minute.
She's not supposed to be here until 9.
Her driver just text messaged, and her facial is ruptured at this. God, these people.
I love Stanley Tucci kind of whistle. He sees Andy, holds up his book between him and her, and whistles to get Emily's attention with just, it is a great little physical bit of like, what is this?
That I can't even talk about.
All right, everyone, gird your loins.
This is the classic. We are building up expectations for the character's entrance. That's what is happening here. Everybody is scrambling. We see people cleaning things up, pouring Perrier. We have the classic car door open, footsteps out, and we see that high heel. Which, by the way, the advertising campaign containing the high heel with the devil trident.
Yeah.
That is a brilliant, brilliant piece of iconography. We follow her in low angle. We finally see that great hair. The hair choice is absolutely incredible. That white hair. That is Meryl Streep's idea. Everyone was against it because they thought it would make her look old. It's possibly based on a model who I didn't know anything about named Carmen del Orefice. Okay. And Carmen del Orefice is still apparently a working model today and is the oldest working model in the world. She was born in the 30s.
Woo! Respect.
Yeah. And I think it's also, by the way, this is a wig. I think it looks amazing and still looks amazing in Devil Wears Prada too, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is a great decision by her because what Anna Wintour is also known for is that hairstyle of hers. Like, it's very iconic. The sunglasses and the hairstyle are very iconic of Anna Wintour. So how are you going to do that but not copy her? You do it in a different way that's just as iconic, just as memorable, and you have the guts of Meryl Streep to do a white hair look instead of trying to look young, which I think is amazing. You know, because it gives her a power and a ferocity. It's almost like a flame on her head, kind of like Hades in the Hercules animated series or animated film. It's kind of like that. It's almost like a flame on her head. So it immediately puts you at unease. And as we see her walk into the building, everyone is scurrying away from her as she comes through, you know.
So here's how Meryl Streep was cast.
It's almost like a shark fin, I would say.
Totally.
Steve.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
No, it is. You see it instantly anywhere and recognize her. It is an incredibly great choice. So here's how Meryl was cast. Initially, the studio was interested in Michelle Pfeiffer, Glenn Close, and Catherine Zeta-Jones.
First two, yes. The third one, I don't know. But yeah, okay.
They weren't interested in Meryl Streep at all because at the time, the studio thought that she wasn't funny. And I'm like,
interesting.
She's in Heartburn, Defending Your Life. You know, like, yes, she particularly in Defending Your Life, where I think she's really, really funny. Yeah. It's just, and now, you know, as I said before, if you watch Only Murders in the Building, Meryl Streep's really funny.
I'll throw another one at you. Death Becomes Her. She is incredible in Death Becomes Her in the comedy moments there as well. So yeah, what a shocking thing.
Yeah. Finally, they do come back to her. They offered her $2 million. She wanted $4 million, which she got. And one of the things that they feel is that the pressure from Anna Wintour got lower when Meryl Streep was cast. Like I imagine
so.
Yeah, because it sort of made it go like, oh, this is a person with great stature playing me. Yeah. Okay. You know, and maybe that's a little bit why some of the designers did start to show up when there had been so much pressure before.
They're taking it seriously. They're taking me seriously. Yeah, fair point.
Miranda gets into an elevator with what looks, like a model who is suddenly terribly uncomfortable to be in the same elevator with Miranda and finally says, "Sorry, Miranda," and sneaks out.
Yeah.
Is there a rule that nobody should ride in the elevator with Miranda?
I think so. Nobody should be on the elevator with Miranda unless she's like brought them onto the elevator. I imagine so.
Yeah. I will just, people aren't going to be surprised by this. I don't like Miranda Priestly. I mean, I love the character. It's a great character, but it's a tough call about which movie makes me angrier, this or Whiplash. It's very different. Oh, it's very different, but Miranda Priestly really pisses me off. Yeah.
Well, I think Miranda is, I have to disagree. I think some people earn their status and some people earn the things that they're doing. And she's, Andy is disrespectful to what she loves from the beginning in her manner and her demeanor and the way she's not taking it seriously, the way she's using it as a step up. So there is a believability that she can be offended by it. But we see much more of the humanity of Miranda than we do Fletcher. Like, I think Fletcher is absolutely the villain, right?
Totally
I think Fletcher's the villain. Whereas Miranda, I think, is a much more complex woman in a male-dominated field. Yes, fashion is a male-dominated field at times. So I think she's had to be a certain way to achieve the things she does. Do I like that she throws stuff on the... I get there are certain things, of course, but like, sometimes you earn your status and you can do certain things. And I don't necessarily see her as evil or cruel, where I think Fletcher is absolutely that. For his
Fletcher, I mean, we're going to talk about this throughout, but
sure.
Fletcher is intentionally cruel on purpose.
Yes.
That is not what Miranda is doing. I mean, sometimes she can be cruel on purpose, but that isn't Fletcher. It's his intention. The whole point is for him. That's why he's doing what he's doing. And that's what's going to be interesting is there are a lot of contrasts. But as I said, we'll talk about them as we go.
Superior born of insecurity, superior born out of confidence are two different things. And I think that's where Fletcher and Miranda are different, honestly.
That is definitely one of the many, many, many differences, I would say. There is an incredible shot as the elevator doors open and push in, and now we get our first real look at Miranda. She comes out of the elevator, and Miranda essentially starts talking mid-thought. No hello, no greeting, no nothing. She says,
I don't understand why it's so difficult to confirm an appointment.
I know, I'm so sorry, Miranda. I actually did
The
confirm last
details of
night.
your incompetence do not interest me. Tell Simone I'm not going to prove that girl that she sent me for the Brazilian layout. I asked for clean, athletic, smiling. She sent me dirty, tired, and paunchy.
and by the way, as they're walking, we're doing another walk and talk. Everything paced pretty quickly. The offices for Runway are both a location and a set. So parts of it are shot in an actual office building in Midtown Manhattan. And then other parts of it are shot on sets that are built in Queens. And when we first come out of the elevator, I think we're on the set. And then I think we're on the location, the real location. And when they turn the corner, now they're on the set in Queens. So this is shot on different days, different places. And basically a good rule of thumb is anytime you're looking out a window, well, they were on the real building in New York. And anytime there isn't a real view or something like that, there's a chance you might be on the set.
What's great about this is that, yes, she's doing these mean things, as you say, Steve, like she's, details of your incompetence do not interest me. And she's rattling off these things that Emily has to do. The way you take the edge off, and this is really smart direction by David Frankel, is you have various people walk into hallways, see her, and turn right around. And it's all happening right around us, right? And that makes you laugh when you're watching it. At least for me, it makes me laugh because it shows you that this is a woman not to be messed with, and these people are utterly afraid of her.
Yeah, I agree.
In a comedic way, right? So you don't turn her into necessarily too harsh of a villain because you're seeing these comedic moments and happening all around her. And you're having Andy get her first glimpse and understanding of how important this woman is. You see Anne Hathaway's face as she's looking around. Everyone's scurrying around, throwing their food away, putting on different shoes. All these things are happening. And she's almost like, what the fuck is going on here, right? And so you have that establishment of her power while also showing a little bit of humor so it isn't taken too seriously.
Well, and this is, again, what's interesting with the comparison with Whiplash is when Andrew in Whiplash shows up in the band room the first time, the moment that Fletcher comes in and everyone jumps to attention and you see all the fear around is the same thing. The difference, and this is what's so interesting, is you brought up the difference between Andrew and Andy, is that Andrew would have known who Miranda Priestly is. Andrew came to the school for Fletcher. He is coming, that he is one of the models. He wants, this is exactly what he wants. Whereas Andy has walked into a room where she knows nothing about any of this.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Very, very different setup. And of course, and I love the moment where Miranda notices this obviously not well-fashioned, well-dressed person sitting there and says, "Who is that?" Emily immediately steps between them, basically to block the view of Andy like it's an eyesore.
Well, Human Resources sent her up about the new assistant job, and I was sort of pre-interviewing her for you, but she's hopeless and totally
Well,
wrong. So.
clearly I'm going to have to do that myself because the last two you sent me were completely inadequate, so send her in. That's all.
So I agree with you about the point in the next scene where Andy clearly does not respect or understand anything about fashion and that bothers Miranda. But Miranda is mean to everybody, including all the people who absolutely love fashion. She is not a nice person to all of the people.
Well, I think what we have clues throughout the movie that Emily is a, how can I say this? She has her own agenda. And these moments when you finish watching the movie, I have a different perspective on them because like she even says later on, like the people I've had before, maybe she says this in the scene with Andy where she says like, oh no, it's later on when Andy hasn't gotten her to the recital and says like, she essentially intimates that Emily is stupid, right? And so she is seeing that Emily is not necessarily there also to promote the magazine or she's there to climb up, to social climb. And so maybe Miranda doesn't necessarily feel the desire to be nice to someone like that because it's a transactional relationship, not an actual relationship where she can reveal herself to her. And there's a reason she's vulnerable with Andy and not with Emily, you know? And so I hear you. She could be nicer for sure. But, you know, there are people who achieve these things, bro, that being nice is not part of it. And so I hear what you're saying, but I don't feel that way necessarily about Miranda. And it's because I saw the whole movie. I probably, when I first watched the movie, was like, what the fuck? But then when you see it in context, I don't feel the same way about her, you know? I mean, after seeing both films, I'll say this is the last point for me on this section, Steve. To me, Andy is the villain of both of these movies. And I have a script I've written out that I'll do on my channel. And I'll be curious. It's an 18-minute video that I've recorded. And I'll be curious to see how people respond to it. And I have my reasons for it, but here we go. You know, but anyway.
Wow, this is a Karate Kid level Cobra Kai reversal you got going on here.
Kind of, yeah. But there's reasons. There's reasons. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. But of course, you make excellent points. And yes, of course, she's being, you know, kind of cruel and dismissive and belittling of Emily for sure. You know, yeah.
So Emily tells Andy she wants to see her, and then Andy gets up, grabbing her the exact kind of briefcase I would have had, you know, like the one you got, and it might have been at the used place, and it was, you know, and you saw it, and you're like, this kind of looks like a lawyer, like a grown-up thing, and you get it, and Emily pulls it out of her hands and hides it. And by the way, as I said, they did see Anna Wintour's office, and if you look at actual pictures of Anna Wintour's office, it looks almost exactly like what they have for Miranda Priestly.
My name is Andy Sachs. I recently graduated from Northwestern University.
And what are you doing here?
Well, I think I could do a good job as your assistant. And
this is, you know, again, like I said, Hoover has done this technique, which is if you don't respond and don't say anything for a long time, people just start rambling on, which is what Andy does next because it's awkward and she keeps talking.
yeah, I came to New York to be a journalist and sent letters out everywhere and finally got a call from Elias Clark and met with Sherry up at Human Resources. And basically it's this or Auto Universe.
So you don't read Runway?
No.
And before today, you had never heard of me?
No.
And you have no style or sense of fashion?
Well, I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question.
Which I love. I think that is a fantastic line, and I think it's perfectly true. I think from the Miranda Priestly perspective, this person objectively has no style or sense of fashion.
Let me ask you something, Steve. The Human Resources people, if we take that deleted scene,
yeah,
and certainly Emily has said in the actual scenes that we have in the movie, Emily, Human Resources must have a sense of humor, right? So, did Miranda have a conversation with the HR people and say, I want you to send me someone more intelligent if they ever come across your desk, because the last two clearly didn't
Possible.
work out, as Emily said, right? So now Miranda is in a way giving her, like, I think Miranda's much more aware of things than people might think at the beginning of this movie. She's handling 30 different things, right? But I imagine she knows that Andy is showing up. She knows that Andy's been sent. I don't think Human Resources would send anyone to Miranda without Miranda knowing about it or being told about it. And so there's a whole thing of like, well, what is the conversation happening here? Is she testing her mettle? As you said with Hoover, who doesn't say anything to see what you do, is this her way of interviewing Andy to see what her mettle is like to work in a place like this? You know,
Totally. Yeah, I think so. I totally think so. And I think that, you know, I think it is stupid for the scene that is not actually in the movie, for Human Resources to send a potential assistant to Miranda Priestly with no warning of what they're going into is ridiculous and would never happen, you know. But that being said, I absolutely think Miranda's constantly testing people, you know, and failing them on their tests, you know, all the time. And I love Meryl Streep. I mean, she's so great. And just the little gesture from her that I am no longer interested in anything you have to say is fantastic. And Andy takes that in, starts to go, and then she has the turn back. You know, this is the moment. And I think this is just what you're saying, that if this was part of the test, there is some steel here, because she says, and now the camera pushes in on Miranda as she studies her and sees her.
Yeah, you know, okay. You're right. I don't fit in here. I am not skinny or glamorous, and I don't know that much about fashion, but I'm smart. I learn fast, and I will work very hard.
I got the exclusive on the Cavalli for Gwyneth.
I think she sees herself, like her young self, coming into a fashion magazine through Andy in this moment. And I love that Anne Hathaway does like almost like a fuck you kind of smile as Miranda dismisses her, because Andy still thinks Andy's in this position where she's a little bit above the fashion industry, right? She doesn't really understand it. So her doing a little smile like, fuck you for dismissing me, and then taking a couple steps and then turning around to defiantly state her case, I think is a great character beat and gives us an understanding that Andy is not just someone who's going to be pushed around. And I really enjoy that.
Well, and I mean, all the filmmaking is backing up exactly what you're saying. The push in on her after she makes her little, like Nigel comes in.
Yeah.
But before she turns to Nigel, she looks at Andy just a little bit longer. Yeah. That's what happens in the editing room, is you go, how long am I going to hold this look? And they have it hold a little bit longer so that we have these exact thoughts that she has really seen something in Andy from before. By the way, I love everyone. You know, the fashion for everyone is interesting. I love all of Stanley Camel. I love all of Stanley Tucci's outfits.
100%.
Yeah. They are fantastic. I don't know that I would ever wear any of them because I'm very shy, but he looks fantastic. They had a great time dressing him, and I'm sure he had a great time getting dressed. You know, lots of fun stuff. It's just a great joke.
So this is what I'm saying. Why do you think Tucci's shitty comments are okay, but Miranda's the cruel one here? That's a pretty cruel comment, don't you think? Who is this sad little person? Is it because he's a gay guy, he gets away with it? I think it's unfair. Mean is mean. Tell me.
Many things. So first of all, nice people can say mean things in funny ways, and there is and truthful people can say truthful things that might hurt a little bit in funny ways.
Yeah.
There is nothing funny in what Miranda is saying. Like, I mean, I shouldn't say it that way. Miranda is funny, but no, they are different. Miranda is intentionally, frequently trying to cut people down, not for her. You know what? I'll say, I mean, we'll talk, like I said, there are a lot of things that we'll talk about as we go. Miranda doesn't care about other people for the most part. She cares about Miranda. And it isn't, if it was like, I care about Runway and everything is about Runway, which I think is probably what Miranda thinks. And therefore all sorts of people need to make sacrifices to accomplish the great goal of making this great magazine. That's one thing. And that's part of it. But it's also, Miranda doesn't want to be inconvenienced. Miranda doesn't want awkward things. And so her standards, make it possible for her to torture not just all the people that work directly under her, but the drivers, the guy at Smith Walensky making the steaks, the people who have to do that. Everybody has to do all sorts of terrible shit because she needs everything exactly the way she wants it. It is entitlement and privilege. And entitlement and privilege are the things that more than anything else, they're not the worst things in the world. They're what piss me off most in the world. And part of it is my grandmother was a very entitled person who walked around believing that she deserved treatment that was better than other people because she was a wealthy lady. And that's it. And so she treated people shittily and demanded things frequently. And I hated to be in the room when it was happening. I find that behavior so disgusting. For me, people who have wealth and privilege are exactly the people who can afford to be more forgiving of other people, not more demanding. So that is it's just things I strongly feel and believe. And so watching Miranda is watching a whole movie of a person being not nice to other people because they think they're better than everybody else.
Okay. I hear your point. And since it's a very personal thing, I'll have to tread lightly into this minefield.
No.
I will say, because I've had enough conflict to last me a lifetime already in my life. And so I will say this, to me, I see her differently than you do and I don't know how you fully see her, right? I see what you're saying in terms
we'll
of
talk about it as we
entitlement
go,
and privilege. Well, we're talking about it now. So it's like, to me, I see that she is a woman who worked her way up the ladder. We don't know her. I don't know your grandmother's situation. She handed the wealth, it's generational wealth. That's different. I think for someone who has earned her way to the top spot to run a magazine with all the pressures that she has on her to run a magazine, there are snippy things that she's going to do. There are things she needs to have in place so that she can function to run the magazine. And yes, I think a lot of people do try to do the least amount they can get away with in order to keep doing it. I think a majority of people are built that way, to do the least amount I can do just to keep my job. And so sometimes a person, when you get into the presence, that's it, the presence of someone who has done the most in her life to achieve the things she's had to achieve, there is a lighting the fire in the ass. It's why Magic Johnson wasn't a great coach, but Larry Bird was. Two different things in their approaches, right? And it's a way you approach it. So yes, I do think Miranda, I agree with you. Miranda is cruel to people at times. It's demeaning to people at times, but she's also from a place of like, I have a magazine to run that must run on time. I have pressures that none of you can possibly understand in your positions. And so yes, if I'm being short with you or I'm being demeaning with you, it's to get you to do what needs to be done here so that we can all keep our jobs and all have a functioning magazine that's successful. And so I think there's different approaches. I hear you. I'm with you. The wealthy, the privileged, the elite, the way they treat people can be shitty. I don't see her that way. I see her as a woman who worked her way up to this position. And so I can afford her a little more of the cracks and the demeaning stuff because the overall goal is to make sure the magazine is successful so they can all keep their jobs,
It's so funny because it's just a basic thing. It came up with Colonel Jessup in A Few Good Men. I think an incredibly accomplished person who obviously is probably in many ways just as good a Marine as he says he is, and does all sorts of shitty things from a position of privilege without understanding the whole consequences of all of his actions. So like I said, and there are areas that we'll get to where it's like, it's not just that I think they're things she's doing is mean. I think the things she's doing is are stupid in terms of leadership, and we'll get to some of those things too. And so now, obviously, Andy didn't get the job. She's walking through the lobby.
Andrea.
And there is Emily standing there with a perfect sort of, what the hell, I don't get it gesture.
That's so good.
And we realize that she's gotten the job. And then we're at a restaurant with Andy's friend, including Adrian Grenier. And there we meet two of their other friends, one of whom is Tracy Toms, who plays Lily, and the other, Rich Sommer, who plays Doug. Yeah,
Rich Sommer, you guys know him from Mad Men. If you watch Mad Men, he was a series regular on that show. He was I think he made it all the way to the end where some of the other people got fired. He was the ad and TV guy throughout that thing. That's pretty much his claim to fame in my mind. And Tracy Toms is a fantastic actress who's been on stage, been on screen. in a number of projects here. She's currently on 911 as a series regular, but I think she was in the film. I think she was in Rent, the movie Rent. So, she's got a great resume as an actress, both on camera and on stage. So good, two really strong actors to play these characters and capturing them at the right times in their careers to play people who are in New York trying to establish themselves in their respective fields,
And we start off with a joke that is exactly in line with everything that we've seen up to this point.
Wait, you got a job at a fashion magazine?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what was it, a phone interview?
Wow. Okay, sure.
One of the funniest little running gags in this thing is that Doug loves the fashion industry.
Miranda Priestly is famous for being unpredictable.
Okay, Doug, how is it that you know who she is and I didn't?
I'm actually a girl.
And they talk about working your way up, and we hear that Nate, the boyfriend, is training to be a chef and working at restaurants, and so he's working his way up. They are the young, up-and-coming people who showed up in New York with all their big dreams, and they have a toast.
To jobs that pay the rent.
To jobs that pay the rent.
Jobs that pay the rent.
Which, by the way, was an improvised joke from the cast that they came up with in the scene.
Right. That's believable. Yeah. It's believable.
Yeah. It's funny when you're there's nothing, sometimes we do things in cliches, and when there's a cliche that works, which is the young people in New York, spend as little time on it as possible when you establish it, which is exactly what they do.
I miss those days. I miss being hungry in my 20s. I do. I miss it. The world's available to you in your 20s. To anybody who's listening to us in your 20s, savor this fucking decade. I can't even tell you this. I know you see so many shows who tell you that from old people. The 20s, man, that's your time. The 30s are where you're really establishing yourself, but your 20s are that time, man. The hunger, the desire, the dreams, the possibilities are all there. For anybody who's listening to us, take advantage of this decade. Don't lose this decade. It's really important, man. So just saying to you, and enjoy, treasure this. I don't know if I can pay my rent. I don't know if I have enough money to do like all this stuff. It's gonna be quaint to you as you get older because there's possibilities and you can do anything. And so I love these little moments in the film that give us a little more background on Andy and her collection of friends and who she is as a person. Because as she establishes here as well, she is not one of those million girls who had killed for the job. So clearly we're establishing this step by step, really slowly, that she's not someone who is necessarily on board with this whole situation, leading us to that scene with Tucci later on in the film.
It's so funny because I don't know if I feel the same way about my 20s. I know
really?
that is, I think I'm happier today.
Yeah.
There are all the time travel movies where like there's what's the Bruce Willis one where he goes back in time to meet and there's his younger self what's his name?
Looper. Yes, Joseph
Looper.
Gordon-Levitt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
So
film.
that's an action movie. But I actually think if you went back in time to your 20-year-old self and said, this is the best time for you, I don't think your 20-year-old self would agree.
I don't know. I mean, I was in the military. I lost all that weight. I was like hooking up with a lot of women because I could get a lot of women back then, and I was pushing the boundaries of my life. But yes, I wasn't internally happy for sure, Steve, because of my mental health issues that I was not aware of in my 20s were coursing throughout my life. And so, yes, I had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but I still had the dreams. Do you know what I'm saying? The possibilities that were always there in those moments of my high feelings. So, but yes, I suppose you're right. Everyone looks back on their 20s differently, just the way I look back on it for sure.
Yeah.
As a formative time.
So she's walking home with Nate, and now we hear one of the big concerns.
You should see the way these girls are runway dressed. I don't have a thing to wear to work.
Come on, you're gonna be answering phones and getting coffee. You need a ball gown for that?
I think I might.
And she's 100% right, I think.
This is the beginning of the corroding of Andy, in my opinion, because she said, from the first few minutes of the film, we see that she's not going to take their barbs. She's going to ride through their comments, the comments on her clothes. But they have clearly worn her down to the point where she's actually considering dressing better for the job. So to me, this is the beginning of Andy being corrupted by this world. I know everyone has a feel-good feeling about this movie, but this is a bit of the corruption here that they're making Andy change who she is in order to fit their world. And so her wanting to kind of explore this. And I think this is where this character that Vinny Chase is playing, like him. I can't not call him Vinny Chase, but him, like he's trying to.
Sorry,
keep
I just want to interrupt for a second because I
Yeah.
think actually that's the key to that actor.
Yes,
is that when he did Entourage, that just was him. It just is he is Vinny Chase, and when he's here, it's the same thing. You know,
listen, some actors live a whole career just being themselves the whole time they're on screen. Adrian Grenier is one of those guys. More power to him. He's successful, but like he's trying to keep her level. He's trying to keep her grounded. He's trying to keep her in this world. And you could argue he's trying to keep her from advancing. I can see that angle for sure. But in my mind, I see him much more trying to make her remember who she is, because these people are starting to step by step change her. It's an interesting moment, you know?
So several thoughts about this. The first is I absolutely, that's what they're establishing. And one of the tensions is like, how is she changing and what is she getting seduced by? And one of the changes they made from the book is there, not that there isn't fashion porn in this film, but the book, you know, it is very much a wish fulfillment. It is every single bag and shoe and every single thing that a woman or anyone who's into fashion would want. And so there's much, much more of Andy getting caught up in that in the book. And that's one of the things they wanted to change in the movie. The second thought I have is, I think it is perfectly acceptable for an employee to have a wardrobe standard for people that work in their offices and present to clients and things like that. That is fine with me. One of the things about this particular situation that I don't think is fine is we hear very clearly that Andy does not get paid well.
Yes.
And this is not cheap. Like if she were to have to, I mean, even if she does get free clothes from the company, which she does, but like just the makeup, the jewelry, the accessories, all this stuff. I heard a great podcast once, and it was, I think the term that they used was girl tax. And it was basically just looking at all the products that men and women have to buy and how the comparable female product is 30% or so more expensive. So like if I'm buying some antiperspirant and I'm a manly guy, so I got my Old Spice antiperspirant and a woman gets some Secret because it's strong enough for a man, but made for a woman. Those are essentially the same products. They cost exactly the same to manufacture. They have the same basic chemical compounds. They have the same basic packaging, and the Secret costs 30% more. And the same is true of socks and underwear and hair care products and every single thing. So, and women have to wear many, many more different varieties of clothes to be socially acceptable. So the cost that a woman going into the workplace is suffering is significantly higher than a dude. So like so my objection isn't that, yes, if you want everyone in your office to wear a suit, then everyone in the office has to wear a suit. That's a requirement for the job. I'm okay with that. The fact that it's so expensive is definitely a problem.
I agree, but at no point did Miranda tell her she has to wear different clothes. At no point did Emily tell her that she has to wear different clothes. She is taking their cues by their comments.
Yes, they're implying very strongly that she has to. Yeah,
they're making comments, but they're not saying she has to. And so she's taking the cue and reading it through her receptors and deciding she wants to do this.
And of course, Nate, being a good boyfriend, says she thinks she always looks great, and that then we get a little bit of sexy flirtation, and then it is the next morning, and the camera pushes in on a sleeping Andy, and the phone rings, of course, at before 6 a.m., and Emily, already in the office, is immediately giving instructions.
Andrea, Miranda decided to kill the autumn jacket story for September, and she is pulling up the Sedona shoot from October. You need to come into the office right this second, and you pick up her coffee order on the way. Now?
And Andy, still struggling to get awake. And then we hear extremely, of course, detailed information about the coffee, which also must be searing hot. And I mean hot. So she's off, she's walking with Starbucks, and again gets the phone call. This is something we'll see over and over again because she is not there fast enough. Right. And then Andy, of course, trips. And one thing I just wanted to point out here, there were so many people tripping on this set because you have all the actors and many of the models in the background. Everyone is wearing 5-inch heels.
Yes.
And running around very fast. So this is a fast-paced movie. So people went down regularly.
Yeah.
And Emily Blunt and Meryl Streep made the choice that if the camera was above, knee height, they were not in high heels. They were wearing comfortable shoes. Which it totally reminded me of when we did Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and there's the scene in the Zeppelin where it was really hot on the set that day, and so Sean Connery sat down to shoot the scene without trousers. Yeah. And Harrison Ford saw that, and needless to say, 20 minutes later, Harrison Ford is also not wearing pants because it's not in the shot and it's hot out, so why bother? Anne Hathaway wore high heels every time she was supposed to be wearing high heels, whether or not they were seen in the shot.
Yeah, well, I mean, some actors, they have to wear the costume fully to embody the character. And so there's nothing wrong. Maybe Anne likes wearing heels and she liked the feeling of that. Nothing wrong with that. But also, I think as an actor, the costume does put you in that frame of mind.
Well, and speaking of costumes, Miranda shows up. And one of the things they were trying to do was they didn't want people to always be able to track exactly what Miranda Priestly was wearing. So they didn't want it just to be, the movie's The Devil Wears Prada, but they didn't want it just to be that she's wearing Prada. So frequently what the costumer's doing is they're mixing up vintage items with other things from different collections to create outfits that are going to be more sophisticated and be like, no, this is Miranda Priestly. This isn't just Chanel,
Is there some reason that my coffee isn't here? Has she died or something?
And again, Emily is dialing her when Anne comes rushing in.
Bloody tongue. I hope you know that this is a very difficult job for which you are totally wrong. And if you mess up, my head is on a chopping block.
This is an interesting character moment because it could be a throwaway line, Steve, but it gives us an idea of why Emily might be a bit more hard on Andy because Miranda told her the last two you brought in, I fired because you can't pick this person. Maybe Emily also senses that Miranda thinks she's stupid, which Miranda alludes to a little later on. And so this is for survival. And so Andy must perform well because Miranda has put her under her. And there are people who sometimes get handed employees to be put under them, and it's their responsibility. They haven't even chosen the employee, but the head boss says, this person is now under your control. Make sure they're ready to do the job and can do a good job. So it adds extra pressure to the situation. So I think it's a little bit of dimensionality to add to Emily's responses to stuff and why she's behaving this way towards Andy.
100%. And we're also going to hear so the stick for Emily is that if Andy screws up, she gets fired. And the carrot for Emily, which we're going to hear about, is going to Paris. So those are the two things. And what just occurred to me this second is what happens in Whiplash is Andrew walks in and there is the core drummer, Tanner, who immediately condescends and pressures Andrew, because if Andrew doesn't turn the page, Tanner could look bad. And later on, Miranda is going to make Emily the number one assistant and make Andrea the second, which of course is exactly what's going on in Whiplash, playing the two people against each other. And then we get a very important piece of information about the phones.
Okay, first of all, you and I answer the phones. The phone must be answered every single time it rings.
Calls roll to voicemail and she gets very upset. If I'm not here, Andrea, you are chained to that desk.
Well, what if I need to...
What? No.
Which is the sort of gesture of go to the bathroom. Yeah. Which, by the way, most humans have to do that occasionally. And
all humans, I think, yes.
And she says...
One time an assistant left the desk because she sliced her hand open with a letter opener, and Miranda missed Lagerfeld just before he boarded a 17-hour flight to Australia. She now works at TV Guide.
Well, listen, you don't want to miss a call from Lagerfeld, so I understand
Dude,
that.
I know the last time I missed his call.
See, I don't know how much. I don't know if that Lagerfeld story is true. I'm a little on the fence on this because Emily has shown us that she is very much about herself, and maybe she throws this story out there. And I wonder if she's concocted this story and used it on the previous two assistants to make sure that they stay at the desk. Because if Andy stays at the desk, Emily can flit around and do a little bit more, hang out with Giselle Bundchen, who we're about to meet in a little bit, and do their thing because Andy is there at the desk covering the phone. So I don't know if I buy the Lagerfeld story as much.
So I had never thought about that, but that makes sense. I mean, that is perfectly possible within what we know about Emily's character. From my perspective, I never see Miranda care about anybody or worry about anybody else's feelings than her own. So it seems perfectly possible that it's true. But your point is well taken. I will say, however, that for me, I don't care if you're working in an Amazon warehouse or the assistant at the desk at Runway Magazine. People have the right to go to the bathroom. And if you have to create a system in which employees cannot go to the bathroom, you should change the system to make it possible for people to pee. That's how I feel. And then Emily basically explains the situation. Andy is the second assistant, so she does the errand running and the gopher stuff and the crap jobs. And Emily is the first assistant, which means she's in charge of her schedule and appointments.
Most importantly, I get to go with her to Paris for Fashion Week in the fall. I get to wear couture, I go to all the shows and all the parties, I meet all of the designers, it's divine.
This is Emily's I Want song.
Yes.
And this is the thing, too, that I realized one of the differences between Andy and Emily, and really I realized it's a weird comparison, it is one of the differences between me and Scott Mantz, which is that Scott Mantz, part of his whole motivation, and I don't think he would be bothered by me saying this, for doing the work that he does, is that he is an incredible fan of movies. And so when we were doing the Star Trek show and he got to talk to a Star Trek person, and when he's interviewed William Shatner and when he's done those things, he is bursting with excitement to meet the people he is a fan of. Emily is a fan of fashion. She's a fan of these desires. To be able to be in their presence is like a huge win, a gift. I am a huge fan of Star Trek, but I don't care. I don't really care that much about meeting the people. I'm a fan of Star Trek because I am a writer, and I love stories. I'm a fan of the show. I'm not necessarily giddy with excitement when I've met a celebrity or something like that. That's not my personality. That would not be my I Want song, My I Want song would be to make the thing. I want to be one of those people. I don't want to meet one of those people. And then she's going to explain about the book. And she pulls out this spiral-bound mock-up of the current issue of Runway Magazine.
The second assistant is supposed to do this, but Miranda is very private, and she does not like strangers in her house. So until she decides that you're not a total psycho, I get the lovely task of waiting around for the book.
A nice little seed that's dropped. Just like the book in Whiplash, the notes with all that stuff. That's just like the book.
It's so fun. And of course, we're only seeing this because we just watched Whiplash. Nobody else would ever be making this comparison, but it's totally true.
The book is important.
Yep. Yes. Andy gets her first phone call and says,
"Hello, Mrs. Priestley's office." That's what I meant, Miranda Priestly's office. She is in a meeting. Can I please take a message? Okay. Can you please spell Gabbana?
Now, I mean, these are these little jokes that they have, but I feel like she would know Dolce & Gabbana, don't you think? As someone who went to Northwestern?
Yes. I certainly have heard the name Dolce & Gabbana, and I am as much of a fashionista as Andy is, but I also can't spell. And so I wouldn't know how to spell Gabbana either, even though I've heard the name. And then Nigel walks up holding a pair of high heels.
I guessed at 8.5.
Wow, that's very nice of you, but I don't think I need these. Miranda hired me. She knows what I look like.
Do you?
And I have to say, Andy is not dressed well. I don't think she's dressed appropriately for any office job, frankly. I mean, it's the sweater's untucked. She's not in a fancy office. I don't mean just any office, but if you're in an elegant office, I think she is not quite dressed at the right level.
Okay.
Emily.
And of course, Andy is looking around trying to figure out what's going on. And Nigel says, she means you.
We just cut on the bias, and so
No,
what we...
that's not what I asked you. I couldn't have been clearer. There you are, Emily. How many times do I have to scream your name?
And then Andy does something that you can tell is almost never, ever done. She corrects Miranda Priestly.
Actually, it's Andy.
And the looks from everyone of like, oh my God, are something.
My name is Andrea, but everybody calls me Andy.
Meryl does a really interesting acting thing. If you watch this moment, she jacks her head back. She jacks her neck back. And again, these are these little moments where Andy is winning Miranda over because she's not a wallflower, because she's not a pushover. Yes, she's not as strong as Miranda, but she's willing to do things in a certain way to command her space, and I think that's really powerful of her. And Miranda has to embarrass her and debase her in front of these people to retain her power, but I think in some ways she respects the fact that Andy pushes back, because Emily would never push back if Miranda called her a different name.
I totally agree. And there's that little look. She is both simultaneously, I think, bothered and interested.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm currently reading, I don't know, the 6th biography of Steve Jobs I've read.
Oh my God.
It's a good one. It's about the time at Next after he left Apple, but before he came back at Apple. And it's fascinating because he is fascinating. And he, like Miranda Priestly, is an incredibly brilliant, powerful, influential person who could be in a complete and horrible asshole and totally irrational all the time. And you just reminded me. So this was a question he liked to ask people when he was thinking of hiring them. He would ask someone, so are you the best hardware engineer in the business? And if they said, well, no, he would say, well, that's who I want, and send them away. And if he said, and if they said, yes, I am the best hardware person in the business, then he would basically break them down and prove that wasn't true. It's one of those questions where there is no answer to that question, that he is not waiting to pounce on you,
So this is interesting. So you don't like Fletcher, you don't like Miranda Priestly, but you're reading a 6th biography on a guy with a track record of treating people like shit.
Because he's fascinating.
So he's fascinating, but Fletcher and Miranda are not fascinating.
When did I ever say they weren't
respective?
When did I ever say they weren't fascinating?
I'm asking you. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking you. Are they as fascinating?
I believe I spent many, many hours being fascinated by Fletcher, and I am absolutely fascinated by the fact that I think that someone is mean doesn't make them a not interesting character. I'm fascinated by Hans Gruber and Darth Vader and Hannibal Lecter too, who are much more evil than these people.
Right,
Steve Jobs is one of the most fascinating people in history, and his story is incredibly interesting.
Because you had a lot of anger for Fletcher, and you had a little, and you've had I think shades of anger for Miranda at certain moments. So I wonder where the Steve. Do you have the same kind of anger when you read some of the stuff that Steve? Because like what you just explained to me is a question of power, not a question of figuring out who's the best person to work for him. If he seeks to debase and then destroy, as opposed to inquire and understand, I think this is where I get I don't have quite the same fascination, I guess, with those kinds of people.
I mean, they're all the great people, quote unquote, and by great, I definitely do not mean good, Right. I mean, the people that affect history.
Yes.
They are usually incredibly complicated. John Lennon, incredibly complicated. I am fascinated by him. Bruce Lee, Orson Welles. You and I are both fascinated. Orson Welles could be cruel, horrible, demeaning. He made ridiculous, stupid choices. He was arrogant. He was foolish. That's why he's fascinating. This is absolutely true of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, listening to this book at Next, because he's trying to rebuild it, and it's crazy to listen to him say the most brilliant thing, do the most brilliant thing, be incredibly loyal and generous in one moment, and then just be unbelievably unreasonable, cruel, and foolish. I mean, the number of stupid things that Steve Jobs does are because he is so here's a Steve Jobs example.
Okay.
They're making so he leaves Apple, for all sorts of reasons, because even though he does great things, he also does terrible things and wasteful things and cruel things and all this stuff. It's out of Apple, and now he's going to make this new computer that's and basically, if he can make this computer for the education market, there's a real market there, and it has to hit a certain price point that was like $3,500 or something. So they designed this. This has the potential to be so far beyond any other computer made by anybody at the time. And they're designing it, and they put together this circuit board that's incredible. And he looks inside and he says, "That's ugly. I need the inside of this computer to be as beautiful as the outside." And so they redesigned the inside of the computer that nobody's going to see for a year, by which time it's no longer way ahead of all the other computer companies. This is what he does over and over again. They had like a budget for $75 or something for the case, but he was so obsessed with getting the perfect logo piece for the case That cost $50. And the case ended up costing $300. The final computer was like 12 grand. And so nobody could buy it. You know, it like, but he hadn't done that. It's the operating system from Next that is on your iPhone right now. The reason that Steve Jobs comes back to Apple is because the operating system that they developed, Apple's desperate for an operating system. They couldn't make one in-house, failed for 8 years to do it. Finally, they bought Next, and that became Mac OS 10. That became iOS. That runs your Apple TV, your watch, all that stuff. Like, there's no, like, this is the thing. And this is why Miranda and Fletcher the least, by the way, because he's the least genius person of these people. Miranda, I agree, unquestionably is great at what she does. That's part of what, if she wasn't, and this is the thing that was, we'll get to it. It was incredibly, there was nothing in the book that really showed that Miranda Priestly was great at what she does.
Right.
And that's one of the big changes in the movie when we get to those scenes.
Essential changes.
Essential. Yeah. All right. It's been not the Steve Jobs podcast. I can 100%
I was just asking a question. I know you felt attacked. I was just asking a question, you know.
Well, actually, but I actually think this is an important point, is me at least. And I think a lot of times most movie, you know, we don't watch The Godfather because Michael Corleone is a good person. We watch it because he's a fascinating person.
Right.
You know, like that's the thing. All right, moving on.
I need 10 or 15 skirts from Calvin Klein.
Okay, what kind of skirts do you...
Please bore someone else with your questions.
And then she just gives a whole bunch of course, rapid orders in the same completely calm, completely soft tone of Miranda Priestly.
She tosses her into the deep end, I think, as a bit of a retaliation for her correcting her name in a public way.
Very possible. Yeah. Would you like to know what is one of the inspirations for how Meryl Streep developed that very soft voice?
Yeah.
Well, it was from a little-known actor named Clint Eastwood.
Ah, smart.
She worked on him on Bridges of Madison County, and she watched him as a director who never raises his voice, is always perfectly calm. And while Clint Eastwood actually is nice and supportive on the movie set, I think Meryl Streep went, if I take that level of calmness and that level of simplicity and give it that edge, this is going to be a scary person. And that is what she does. By the way, one quick note. At the table read, this is the first time Anne Hathaway meets Meryl Streep. She walks up to Anne, and Meryl says, I think you're perfect for the role, and I'm so happy we're going to be working on this together. And this is the last nice thing I will say to you until wrap.
There you go.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes. So when Meryl tries to say in interviews, I don't know method, I don't know this or that, or I don't know that or this, just take it with a grain of salt. She knows exactly what she's doing.
My understanding is this is one of the few movies that she really did kind of stay in character between takes. Because as you said, normally she just walks on in front of the camera and does it, you know?
Yeah.
Andy's walking away. Miranda looks at her and says,
And Emily?
Yes?
And just looks down to the shoes. And of course, Andy puts on those high heel shoes.
So what do you think about that? The timing of Stanley Tucci showing up with the shoes and then Miranda looking down at her shoes. Did she see Tucci come in with the shoes, or did she and Tucci have a conversation? Because we find out they are friends and been together a long time. Was there a commentary there? It's interesting timing.
So it obviously could be any of those things, but I actually think it's none of them. I think Nigel 100% knew that he doesn't need to ask Miranda the question. He doesn't need to. He knew 100% that this was going to be an issue for Miranda and worked to solve the problem. He worked to solve the problem before it was an issue because that's when he brought the shoes. And now Emily's there and Andy is trying to convey all the things that she heard that, of course, she didn't really keep track of.
Did she say which skirts?
No.
Did she say what kind?
No,
Colour?
I tried to ask her.
You never ask Miranda anything, right? I will deal with all of this, and you will go to Calvin Klein.
Having it be a rule that you can't ever ask the leader question is terrible leadership. It like that goes back to like Sun Tzu. Like Sun Tzu, there's like a thing that's like if you lose the battle and the general's orders were clear and the soldiers didn't follow them, it was the soldier's fault. If you lose the battle and the general's orders were not clear and the soldiers did follow the unclear orders, it is the general's fault. Not giving clear, I mean, how many times have you had bosses who did not give you clear instructions?
Yeah.
It's terrible. Terrible. And I love Andy's reaction to her having to go to Calvin Klein.
Me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have some prior commitment? Some hideous skirt convention you have to go to?
This is what we're going to see all the time. She's rushing through traffic, getting calls from Miranda, calls from Emily that now she has to pick up other things.
While you're out, Miranda needs you to go to Hermes to pick up 25 scarves we ordered for her.
Okay.
Cassidy forgot her homework at Dalton. Pick that up.
Oh, yeah, and Miranda went out to meet with Mizell, and she will want more Starbucks when she gets back. Hot Starbucks.
Can you just repeat that first? Hello?
We're going to see this over and over again throughout the film.
And this is how it can be as an assistant. Like, you know, we can talk about what you should or shouldn't do, how you should or shouldn't behave. But the truth is, this is the game because, as you just said earlier, human beings are complicated, and especially people in power are complicated, and they're not going to treat you the right way all the time. They're not going to know exactly. So you've got to figure it out. What you hope to do is break the chain when you get to a position of power that you don't do those things. But, you know, that isn't always the case.
Well, and this is like, my problem isn't that people are demanding. My problem isn't that people are pushed to work hard. And my problem isn't that they're very, very high standards or even that there's lots of chaos. You work on a movie set, there's going to be chaos.
Yeah.
It's the lack of care for humanity and the inefficiency it creates that pisses me off. I mean, it's so funny. That's why I go like, I mean, Fletcher pisses me off in every single scene he's in, his condescending, his demeaning, his all. This is just pisses me off in a different way, you know. This is also closer because I think so much about leadership that it's just something I think about all the time, you know, is what is good or bad leadership.
What took you so long? I have to pee.
What? You haven't peed since I left?
No, I haven't been manning the desks, haven't I? Bursting.
And Miranda enters.
Oh, hi.
She dumps all of her stuff on Andy's desk, something we'll see that many, many times.
The run-through is at 12:30 and people are panicking, so the phone is going to be ringing off the hook.
And Andy, not knowing anything, which is good because I don't know anything either as the audience member. So when she asks...
The run-through, right.
And we get an explanation, that helps me.
Yes, editors bring in options for the shoot and Miranda chooses. She chooses every single thing in every single issue. Run-throughs are a huge deal. I don't know why you don't know that, Andrea.
The fact that Miranda chooses literally every article of clothing in that huge, thick issue of a fashion magazine is amazing.
Right, well, after the loo, Serena and I are going to lunch. Is this her, the new me?
And in walks Serena, who is played by Gisele Bündchen.
Yeah, Gisele Bündchen, Brazilian model, former Mrs. Tom Brady, incredibly beautiful woman who made an incredible success. And her sisters are just as incredibly attractive. I think they've also done some modeling in their past, but also have worked, other more, shall we say, sector jobs. And so, yeah, incredible energy. Terrible actress, but incredible energy here to bring in an authenticity for the runway offices.
And we hear that Emily gets 20 minutes for lunch, Andy gets 15, and then it's later, and Andy's heading off to lunch, and there is Nigel. This cafeteria is in the real office building that they're using that's on Times Square, so this is a real location. And Nigel immediately scans her selections and says,
Corn chowder. That's an interesting choice. You do know that cellulite is one of the main ingredients in corn chowder.
So none of the girls here eat anything?
Not since 2 became the new 4 and 0 became the new 2.
Well, I'm a 6.
Which is the new 14.
It's funny. I have had several times in the show, the one that pops in my mind is Goonies, where I was really bothered by the fat jokes. I am not remotely bothered by the fat jokes, by these kinds of jokes in this movie, because the difference is in Goonies is that it's funny to make fun of the fat kid. That is what the fat jokes, they force the fat kid to jiggle his fat and everybody laughs and people in the audience laugh because fat people are funny. That's not what this is. This is, here is a culture that is absolutely real with very, very high demands put on women. And we are joking about Andy being within this culture. It's not making fun of it. So it's doing an entirely different service, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have a different opinion on it because I think they get away with it because they wrap it up in Stanley Tucci, who's playing a gay character.
That's true, too.
Gay men can be bitchy, and apparently it's okay towards women. And so to me, this is still pushing this narrative of like judgment of women. I don't care if it's wrapped up in a funny gay guy. It's still judgment of women leading to eating disorders, leading to unrealistic expectations. And so, but you're right. This is all from the top down, right? Never mind that Miranda's not a zero, for God's sakes, by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a judgment coming down from Miranda through the fashion offices of a certain way to look.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of what I've read on fashion, that gay men have been instrumental, not just women, in pushing these unrealistic beauty standards for women because of the size 0 stuff and all that, and the skinny as possible. And to me, this is where it's frustrating, because I think women should be allowed to be any size they want to be, and there should not be these kinds of standards put upon them, whether it's from other straight women or other women or gay men, or straight men, for sure.
These are great points, and I find myself 100% agreeing with both me and you. These things are both true. This is structured in the movie to show a culture, and it is still also reinforcing that culture. By the way, I don't know how much you've heard about it, and I never watched the show and knew nothing about it, but I've been hearing all these articles and interviews about Project Runway and all of the abuse. And exactly the things that you are talking about right
the
now.
Documentary. I watched the documentary on Netflix. It's an amazing documentary. People should totally watch it. There's another series coming. I can't remember what channel that's supposed to be on, where they really go into America's Next Top Model and explore how corrosive that was, and 2 gay men judging these women. Listen, I support the LGBTQ plus community. I'm an ally, and I've been so for a long time. But that doesn't mean that they can't be criticized for some of their complicity in these issues that women face all the time and have faced for decades in terms of beauty standards. It isn't just straight men, and it isn't just other women, And so I just want to make that clear as we look at this stuff.
And I think it's just individuals. I don't think they should be judged for anything. I think the specific people every group has assholes. The way people try to argue these points is like that this group is either entirely good or entirely that. And it's like, no, those are individuals who did things, and if those things were shitty, then they should be criticized for it.
Yeah, I'm just saying historically, gay men have escaped criticism for their contribution to this kind of stuff, and I think there should be called out for the people that do it. You're right, not all gay men, but the gay men that do it. Yes.
Well, this is, to negatively do anything to a group is wrong, and to exclude any group from any criticism is also, it's not equally wrong, but it's not right.
Because I hate the way Miranda do it. I hate the way Emily does it. Why don't they just straight up say, well, you've got to have a new wardrobe. We're going to give you a little bit of stipend, or you can go down to the, as critical as you've been in some of the leadership practices, I would say there's a better way to convey this rather than passive aggressive comments. Yeah,
exactly. That's precisely. That's the point for me. Then Andy spills on her blue sweater.
Shoot.
Oh, never mind. I'm sure you had plenty more polyblend where that came from.
Which is, as you said, it is a very specific kind of cattiness. Yeah. And then Andy pushes back, which I love.
Okay. You think my clothes are hideous, I get it. But, I'm not going to be in fashion forever, so I don't really see the point of changing everything about myself just because I have this job.
Yes, that's true. That's really what this multi-billion-dollar industry is all about anyway, isn't it? Inner beauty.
I think that's a great line. And even though I am, as you know, I'm the least fashion person in the world, I put no attention into what my outside appearance is, or the bare minimum. But the outside appearances matter. And my lack of attention to my appearances probably has cost me and affected my lives in all sorts of ways. And so the idea, the idea that I was raised at, which is that only the inside matters and surfaces don't, isn't true.
No.
It should be true, maybe.
Right.
But surfaces matter. People react to people's appearances. That's just reality. And then, of course, we get a phone ring that Miranda has pushed up the meeting, so they're already late. We go into the elevator. This is a pickup shoot. So this shoot, and basically, we're not going to go into the scene. They walk into the elevator. They see the CEO of the company. We see that he's upset by the tremendous amount of money that Miranda is spending. That's basically what happens in the scene.
Yeah.
As I mentioned when we did Whiplash, one of the first things that happens when a film gets greenlit, if budgets are tight, is that you go, what can we cut? How many characters can we cut? How many locations? And so this scene was in the script and they cut it out. And then they're editing the movie and realized that they really hadn't planted anything possibly negative that could ever happen to Miranda anywhere in the movie. And they realized they needed it. So they put it back in.
Makes sense. Because Irv becomes an important part of this movie, and then later in the second film as well.
And if he had just showed up in Paris, then it wouldn't have really worked, which is what it was without this scene. All right, and now we're in the run-through, and Miranda is, as we heard, she's looking through all the clothes. And as they enter, Nigel turns to Andy and says,
And then
And watch and listen.
And I think it can be very interesting with...
And everyone is scrambling to please Miranda. And I love this moment because essentially Miranda is critical of everyone, except her relationship with Nigel is different.
Yes.
She doesn't need anyone's opinion until Nigel comes in. And Nigel basically finishes her thought.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, you know me. Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
But do you think it's too much like
a La Croix from July? I thought that, but no, not with the right accessories. It should work.
This is unlike any other relationship in the film. The respect for Nigel is 100% real.
Yeah. In my headcanon, they came to the magazine at the same time and became friends and helped each other move up the chain, were each other's sounding board, were each other's friends during the tough times, tough moments, probably many nights, him or her getting emotional or crying about the stresses of the job, figuring it out, and they powered through it because they had each other. And so it's not a coincidence that Miranda, in my headcanon, sees a little bit of herself in Andy, that Nigel is starting to find himself connected to Andy. There is a similarity here that is playing itself out all over again in unconscious, subconscious ways, which I think is interesting to watch as the movie progresses.
It's so funny because and this is why it's always interesting because in the end, every human actually sees a different movie because every human walks into the film with their own set of thing. If I were to have come up with Nigel and Miranda's backstory, it wouldn't have been that. Yeah, I would never have seen them anywhere close to equals or anywhere sharing emotions really in any way. I think there was always, I put up my hands to show, but it was always a hierarchical structure with Nigel always well below her,
Well, I just base it on the fact that I know a lot of women who have a gay best friend that they trust implicitly about everything. And so that's where I kind of go with that and see that through that prism, so to speak, because the way she trusts his judgment. And they complete each other's sentences, as you see in the scene. Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's nothing illogical about what you said.
Yeah, no.
That is totally, it's just, that's not how I see the relationship.
Yeah.
But, that's why it's backstory. That's why it's headcanon,
Yeah, headcanon, totally.
Yeah. And now we pull out these two blue belts. This was very hard to find. Right. Two blue belts that was a unique enough blue and were similar and were close enough in style for Andy to have her reaction, but different enough. They spent, this is when you're a prop person or a costume person, they spent, my guess is they spent weeks just trying to find these two belts,
Yeah. And by the way, the person holding up those two belts is actress Rebecca Mader, who I think was one of her kind of like roles where she was kind of starting to stand out a little more, book some more things, so to speak. And this was kind of early in her career. And after this, she gets on to Justice, which she's a series regular, and she does a number of films and TV shows. She's on Lost for 22 episodes as well. People remember her on Lost. And Once Upon a Time, she did that as Zelina and Kelly West for 67 episodes. But she's kind of like a hidden actress here amidst all the madness, but that is Rebecca. She's a fantastically talented actress.
I didn't notice it at all until you just pointed it out. So Miranda is looking at these belts.
It's a tough call. They're so different.
And Andy giggles. And everyone turns to her.
Something funny?
Andy has that moment of realizing that everybody is looking at her.
No, nothing's, it's just that both those belts look exactly the same to me. I'm still learning about this stuff and...
This stuff?
This, to me, this is the moment of the movie.
Yeah.
I honestly, and I totally like the movie. I totally enjoy it. I don't know if we would be doing this movie on the Cine-Files if this scene weren't in it. I think this scene is so incredible, and it reframes everything for me about the whole film.
Oh, okay. I see. You think this has nothing to do with you.
And then as this scene starts, Emily shows up behind.
Yeah.
To witness Andy's humiliation. Why does Emily show up behind? Because Emily Blunt campaigned for it and said, I should be at this scene.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
And I think she's totally right. I think it's important for this to be witnessed by Emily.
Yeah.
You know?
And the power dynamic. And it's almost like she could save her and doesn't and stays outside of the attacking ring, so to speak.
And you will see that as Meryl is giving this incredibly brilliant speech, that she is simultaneously assembling an outfit.
Yeah.
That is Meryl Streep's idea.
Oh, so smart.
So smart. Well, and in fact, this whole scene is the director Frankel and Meryl Streep's the constant pressure saying Miranda has to be brilliant. She has to be great at her job. We have to show her. And to show her simultaneously explaining the entire high fashion to low fashion pipeline while putting together an interesting and gorgeous outfit is accomplishing exactly that goal.
Yeah, it's showing her utter genius at being able to deliver this monologue and pace this monologue perfectly for maximum effect every time she makes a pause while also constructing this outfit. But it's also the film in a way, and this is early 2000s when fashion was starting to blow up. There was of course, fashion's always been around, but like really starting to blow up in the early 2000s. There was this pushback of mocking it and scoffing at it and whatever. And so the film in a way is trying to educate people through the vehicle rather of Andy, that there is more to fashion than just supermodels and wearing clothes and, you know, all this kind of stuff. There is a connective tissue here. And I think it's so brilliant. And I don't know if this is lifted from the book or adapted by the screenwriter, but it's an incredible monologue. And the way and Andy takes it. Like she takes it because it's delivered in a very intellectual way. And as Andy as an intellect can understand where Miranda's coming from and follows along with it, even though it frustrates her later in the next scene how she was embarrassed. But it is a fantastic thing, you know.
In answer to your question, none of this is in the book. This is all.
It's like the Baldwin speech in Grenier Ross. Yeah. Like it's so, as you said, it's so essential to to elevate this film to another level. This scene for sure. Yeah.
What you don't know is that sweater is not just blue. It's not turquoise. It's not lapis. It's actually cerulean.
Which, by the way, I can't. If someone shows shows me a color and say name that color, I could say it's blue. You know, I might even say it's blue green, or I might say it's a light red. But I can't name it.
If I'm pushed.
And you're also blithely unaware of the fact that in 2002, Oscar de la Renta did a collection of cerulean gowns, and then I think it was Yves Saint Laurent, wasn't it, who showed cerulean military jackets. I think we need a jacket here.
And then she proceeds to explain how these high-end things created by great designers make their way everywhere.
And then cerulean quickly showed up in the collections of 8 different designers. And then it filtered down through the department stores and then trickled on down into some tragic casual corner where you no doubt fished it out of some clearance bin.
Did you ever have this thought or ever understand anything like this?
Not until I saw this movie.
Yep, me too.
Because I was never the best at fashion. I just wore what I like to wear.
You were better than me.
well, it wasn't until I moved to LA. And in LA, in a way, was my Devil Wears Prada. I came in, which really fucks me up now, because I came in wearing flannel shirts, jeans, and boots everywhere. The first couple of years I was in, and sometimes I would wear shorts with my flannel shirts, by the way. This is the stuff I wear, or I'd wear like real polos, like Banana Republic polos, with these sneakers. And so I remember that I dated a girl, and I might have told the story years ago on the show, but for those of you who knew, bear with me. I dated a girl who I was interested in. She was came from a little bit of wealth. She was house sitting for an uncle of hers' house way up in the hills. And I remember I showed up one day to pick her up. We'd gone on a few dates, and I'd worn like jeans or whatever. But I showed up one day in my summer clothes, and I looked like a dad. And she opened the door, and she's like, "What are you wearing?" I was like, "Oh, it's summer. What do you mean?" And she said, "Do you think I want to sleep with you dressed as my father? What kind of fashion?" So she like dressed me down in a way that totally embarrassed me. But but I maybe needed to hear it because I wasn't aware of the LA thing. And just like Andy, I was judgmental of the superficiality of LA, right? Just like Andy's judgmental of fashion to a degree. And so that moment, because I ended up leaving, we didn't make out or anything. I just ended up leaving about an hour or two later. And I called my gay best friend, Michael Vogel, and I said, I just got ridiculed. I just got told that I wear dad clothes and I need help. And Michael screamed into the phone and said, and I don't mean that in any way to denigrate Michael, but he did at the time, screaming into his voice, I've been waiting for this call for a long time. Let's take you shopping. And so, and that's what we did. We went to Banana Republic. He changed my entire wardrobe. I had a few $100s that I had saved up and a little bit of credit card credit. And I bought a bunch of stuff and changed my entire style. So since then, I have had some idea of how I look good and layering clothes and whatever. But like at the time, yeah, I was a complete idiot about this kind of stuff. But then when flannels came back in style a couple of years ago, I was absolutely pissed, Steve, because I had thrown all my flannels away out of embarrassment.
Well, and I will say this, and I don't think he would be offended by me saying this, but I met Michael Vogel very soon after he moved to LA from Florida, and his fashion changed a lot in that first year because he went to a different culture. And this is why Nigel's statement about this multi-billion-dollar industry exists because of inner beauty, I think is totally right. He's right. Like, whether you like it or not, or see it superficial or not, this stuff matters.
Yeah. People like to look good, and we judge by first appearances. No book you can write, no philosophy you can spew out, no shaming you can do will ever change that in humanity. It is just an instinct of humanity to judge initially by how you look or how you present yourself, and from there you judge the rest.
Which is why, whether you like it or not, this is an important industry, which is what Miranda says right here.
However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs. And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when, in fact, you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Yeah, it's perfect, and I will super quickly say there's a story of this from things that are my thing, which is have you noticed that in the last maybe 5 to 10 years you have found way more salt on desserts and chocolates and sweet things that you have salted dark chocolate, salted caramel ice cream,
salted caramel, yes.
It's the exact same story. It's a dude in 1977 in Brittany where there's great butter who said, I wonder if I can make caramel pastry with butter. And so he made a salted caramel pastry. And in 1980, he won a big award. In 1990, Michelin's, like the super high-end restaurants, had salted caramel desserts. By 7 years later, the mid-high-end restaurants were having salted chocolate and salted caramel desserts. And now it's at your chocolate bar at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same story is that some high-end person somewhere did this thing and it eventually filtered out into being massively multi-million-dollar industries.
Let me go even deeper. It's at a Dairy Queen. You can get a salted caramel blizzard at Dairy Queen. Yeah,
exactly. And all this started with some master pastry chef in the coast of Britain.
It's so true, man. It's so true.
Speaking of food, we cut to someone making a grilled cheese.
Yeah.
Absolutely identical, Belle. And you should have seen the look she gave me. I swear, I thought the flesh was gonna melt off her face.
It's so funny, too, because she was so calm through the whole thing.
Taking the tongue lashing,
Well, no, I mean, Miranda, she wasn't yelling or you could see Fletcher's flesh melting off his face. Miranda is so calm, but it feels the same,
Yeah.
She is not happy unless everyone around her is panicked, nauseous, or suicidal. And the clackers just worship her.
The who?
And then we get an explanation of the clackers, which is the people, because they're all in high heels, they make noise everywhere they're going.
The amount of time and energy that these people spend on these insignificant, minute details, and for what? So that tomorrow they can spend another $300,000 reshooting something that was probably fine to begin with to sell people things they don't need.
I mean, you could see a perfectionist film director spend another $300,000 to make changes that the ordinary person probably couldn't see the difference between them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there's not a difference.
This is a fascinating scene. Considering everything she's upset about, she will come to respect and admire later on in the film.
Yep.
The clackers, all of that, because she will become a clacker herself, right? And this whole point of view of this situation is interesting. And it's also coming from a person who's never been in charge of anything. So to judge another person who's in charge of something, this is what we do. We always do. The people who are not in charge always judge the people who are in charge, always think they can do better until they get in charge and they realize, holy shit, I didn't know all this other stuff I had to do while I was in charge. And then people below them criticize how they run things. It's just the natural circle of life, honestly.
Yep. And it's in fact, she's so upset, she's not even, can't even eat the grilled cheese sandwich he made. And this, by the way, is a perfect example of why this is a fashion movie and not a food movie. Because he says,
No. Give me that. There's like $8 of Jarlsberg in there.
Now, Nate is supposedly training to be a chef. I guarantee you the cheese would not have been Jarlsberg if this was a foodie movie.
Please explain. I would love to, because I don't know about this. Please explain. What is Jarlsberg cheese?
Jarlsberg is a brand name, slightly better version of Swiss cheese. It's a perfectly good cheese. It is in every grocery store in the world. But if your point is that you used an expensive cheese to make a grilled cheese sandwich, you would never have picked Jarlsberg. You know, and so like in this movie, the only reason I brought it up, in this movie, they're going to nail every single fashion point so that someone who loves fashion and reads Vogue every day will go, yeah, that's the stuff. But it's not a food movie. If it were a food movie, they would have said, they would have said it's a taleggio with dates and rosemary drizzled with honey, you know. Like then you would you say that and someone goes, oh, that person knows about food.
Exactly. Also, he burned the bread. Fuck him. I like my bread. I like my grilled cheese lightly toasted.
Wait, when you say toasted, how are you cooking your grilled cheese?
Well, you know what I mean, like on the pan, how he's doing it. You want it lightly burnt, not burnt like he's got it.
Yeah, all right. Agreed. No, you should not burn a grilled cheese. Anyway.
You know what? Screw you. I put it in the toaster sometimes, and then I melt the cheese between the breads.
That was the question I was
to me.
That was the question I was actually asking. Because there is an entire, and by the way, nothing wrong with putting some bread in a toaster with some cheese on it and toasting it. Delicious. But but it's a different dish.
You're right.
It is literally not grilled. All right,
there's a grilled cheese place that just opened near me here in the house. Yeah. I want to try it out at some point soon when I'm ready to do grilled cheese again. Yeah.
So I know that we're going on long and having too many digressions, but I'll just say the person who taught me how to make a grilled cheese was Karen, my ex's mom, who's an incredible cook. Here was her method.
Wow.
Take a big pat of butter, put it in the pan, put a piece of bread on the butter, let it soak up some butter, take the bread out, put another piece of butter in the pan, flip that piece of bread over, let it soak in the butter, do this with both pieces of bread, then put cheese on the bread, then put more butter in the pan, grill the side, take it out, put more butter in the pan, the other side, until this was the butteriest and most unbelievably delicious and deadly grilled cheese you could possibly imagine. But it tasted great. Anyway. And now we get the montage of Andy struggling to get her to do her job. And it includes her, of course, running all around the town. It's demands from Miranda about her breakfast, demands from Miranda about making reservations, picking up errands, Emily calling. She's always behind. She's going through where the models are changing, covering her eyes. And each moment, Miranda comes and dumps her stuff on Andy's desk. And that's sort of the punctuation. Dump, 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 and making her feel more put upon and more abused as we go.
I do want to say, though, at the end of this montage, Steve, we do establish that Andy is getting better at her job because Miranda asks for Micheline, I think is the name, and she had asked for him a few minutes ago, and she didn't know who to call, Andy.
Right.
But this time, she does get the person on the phone. It says Patrick's on the phone, which is exactly what Emily did when Andy didn't know what to do with all those requests earlier a few minutes ago in the film. So we do establish in the montage, she's dealing with all of Miranda's shit, but she's getting better at her job, you know?
So glad you brought that up because, of course, that montages are all about progression.
Yes.
You know, they're all about repetition, taking you from here to there. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. One filmmaking thing I want to explain, because when you see all this stuff happen in the movie at the same time, the feeling is, well, they must have shot it all at the same time. And I'm almost certain that they had a very specific plan for how they did it. So specifically, like Miranda walks in and dumps clothes on the desk. And you go like, well, it's literally like a 4-second shot. It's the same shot every time. You would just do it one after another. Why not? That's the easy thing to do. But the hard thing is that every time Meryl Streep is in a different costume. And so I wanted to explain a thing that I don't think I've ever really talked about, which is the job of the assistant director, which is to deal with time. They schedule the shoot. And so they need to know how much each department needs to do every job required to do that thing. And now generally the department that requires the most time is camera, grip, lighting. So like lighting the scene and setting up the camera, dollies, things like that. And so that's the big chunk. But costumes and wardrobe and makeup also take time. And the more elaborate the costumes, wardrobe, and makeup, the more time that it takes. So when I was teaching student films where things are relatively simple, I would basically say, in general, you need at least 15 minutes for a guy and 30 minutes for an actress. And this is not sexist. This is just the general requirements for clothing, hair, and makeup for men and women are different. And that's just the world that we live in. If it's a professional shoot, I go minimum 30 minutes for a guy, probably 45 to an hour for a woman. If the guy has to have a special scar, well, then that's an extra. That's now we're bumped up to an hour. If we get serious makeup, now we need 2. If a student came into me, just a student film, and said, I need a bride on her wedding day, I would say you need 2 hours minimum to prep that. I would say that once people are in these outfits, every outfit of Miranda, except for the one where she's wearing no makeup, every time Andy is in the fancy clothes, all the clackers are minimum 2-hour changes. Wow. If there's hair changes, like you see, there's the montage where Andy has different hair in every single shot. Hair changes could be another hour on top. So every time you had to have Meryl Streep come in and just dump clothes on the desk, you had to wait 2 hours for her to get into the other outfit. And so when the AD is looking at this and the production team, you go, we're not going to schedule these all on the same day. What we're going to do is anytime we have Meryl in a different outfit and we're in that location, we will do a drop the clothes shot. So it's the same thing that they did. Any magazine article you see that's like on the desk or a mock-up where they're models, they had to have a photography shoot, a fashion shoot, to get the images to go in Runway magazine. And so what they did was they had models and people with costumes and a photography unit basically follow the crew to a lot of these locations. So as the crew was wrapping, the models would want the set's still lit and they would do a photo shoot real quick just to get some more photos for the magazine. And they did this over and over again. So there's like models and costumes and photographers kind of following this movie shoot in order to make the most efficient use of all the resources that they have when they have them.
Oh, thank God it's Friday, right? At least Miranda will be in Miami, so we don't have to be on call this weekend.
Totally dismissive look from Emily. She is not interested.
You doing anything fun this weekend?
Yes.
And walks out. Emily Blunt is great at the condescension and the shade.
I don't think she's doing anything fun, to be honest with you. I think she's going back home and just fucking, I don't think there's any guy she's with or anything like this. You know, I think this is all just an act. I really do.
And I mean, the whole reason to say yes and then walk out is to say, we are not friends.
Yes.
I am superior to you.
Yes, yes, exactly.
You know,
yes.
That's what she's doing.
Oh, your dad's in town?
Yeah,
right, exactly, yeah.
We're out for dinner with Dad, who's played by David Marshall Grant, and after a little bit of small talk, Andy says,
Do you want to start grilling me now, or should we wait till after dinner?
And then Dad expresses their worry.
We get emails from you at your office at 2 a.m. Your pay is terrible. You don't get to write anything.
Hey, that's not fair. I wrote those emails.
I'm just trying to understand why someone who got accepted to Stanford Law turns it down to be a journalist, and now you're not even doing that.
So let me ask you something. This is exposition. Yes. And you know, you're a writer, you're a director, these things, in this moment, is this the right way to do a little more exposition on Andy that we haven't necessarily gotten to this point? That she's done these things and made these decisions with her life and put like all this time and effort that they had spent in getting her education scored away and her working at her education. Now there's, she seems to have taken a left turn in her life at this point, which happens, right? In our 20s, a lot of people take a left turn from what they were intending to do.
I took 6.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, interestingly enough, this scene was much longer and there was much more backstory, and they cut it down to the bare minimum, which I think is correct. Yes, I do think it's good, because what we want to check in on is Andy's moral journey towards what she said was her goal and how she's being changed. And that little thing about bad pay and Stanford Law and being a journalist, frames that for us.
Yeah.
So yes, I think this is a good time to do it. And she pushes back. And I think because she started to appreciate Runway and Miranda, which she really hadn't before.
Emily is going to Paris with Miranda in a few months, and she's going to meet editors and writers from every important magazine, and in a year that could be me.
I mean, everything she says there is true. She is going to make all these contacts.
I think this is a universal experience sometimes too. To have to convince your parents that what you're doing is the best thing.
And naturally in this scene, what happens next? The phone rings.
I'm sorry, Dad, I have to take this. Hello, Miranda?
My flight has been canceled. It's some absurd weather problem.
By the way, the absurd weather problem is a hurricane.
I need to get home tonight. The twins have a recital tomorrow morning at school.
What?
At school.
Absolutely. Let me see what I can do.
Good.
And then, while sitting at dinner with her father, and we can assume she spends the rest of her dinner desperately trying to get a flight for Miranda and not speaking to her father at all.
Yeah.
And we cut to later, and they're pulling up to Times Square to go to the Broadway show Chicago. By the way, whenever a movie like this shoots, you have to lock down a certain portion of the street for safety. Locking down all of Times Square is a really expensive shoot. They could not do that. They're not controlling traffic. They have like one little lane and like 20 extras, and everything else, all the other cars and people you see in the background are all the cars and people and tourists at Times Square. So they have a little tiny area cordoned off. That's it. And as they're walking up, she is still not talking to her father. She's on the phone trying to make that happen.
Miranda, hi. Look, I'm trying to get you a flight, but no one is flying out because of the weather.
Please. It's just, I don't know, drizzling.
Cut to Miranda standing in front of a big window with a crazy storm going on behind her. This, of course, is green screen.
Call Donatella. Get her jet. Call everybody else that we know that has a jet. Irv. This is your responsibility. This is your job. Get me home.
Oh my God, she's going to murder me.
What does she want you to do? Call the National Guard and have her airlifted out of there?
Of course not. Could I do that?
All right, so this is an interesting scene, Steve, and I wonder what your thoughts on it are, because Andy clearly comes from a certain level of wealth and well, at least I think so. Certain level of wealth and privilege.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if she's rich, but they're at a nice restaurant and they're going to a Broadway show. Yeah,
exactly. And I don't think they're getting the $10 seats, right? So her dad.
If you think they're $10 seats at a Broadway show, you're mistaken.
Well, or you're probably right. I'm just used to the West End where you could camp outside for rent, but I think that was specifically just for rent, the £10 tickets. But like the thing here is that, so in my mind, is she someone who comes from a privileged background, who has made this left turn in her life and is a little bit like just has a sense of this elitism and condescendingness that comes through her? She's not a villain. Well, in my video that I'm going to do, she will. But like when you look at the situation here, she is clearly coming from a place of a little bit of privilege. And so she can afford to make this left turn. And it's an interesting decision because did she tell her mom, knowing that her mom was going to tell her dad that she was struggling to pay rent and all this kind of stuff in the job, so that her dad would show up with money? And then is she playing this role of like, oh, I'm going to kill mom? But this is the game they've always played, and every family's got their dynamics, with finances. So it's an interesting, it's another window into Andy's character. She isn't a poor kid who is desperate to make it and is struggling in the situation with a kid who's trying to be a chef. There's a little more wealth and privilege here than you might initially think from the way the film presents her at the beginning, And so I think this is an interesting thing to look at with her and put her character in context. So what do you think about that?
So I don't see Andy as consciously manipulative or a villain or scamming her parents or anything like that.
Neither do I. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
I do think certainly, kids try to get a little bit more money out of their parents. That's, not just rich kids, all sorts of kids at lots of different levels. And the way I see it, and maybe this is kind of closer to me, my family certainly could afford to go to New York, occasionally eat in a nice restaurant. And I had been to a Broadway play when I was, a teenager. So I had those experiences. But after college, I was broke, And there were I was having, I'm sure you've had it, where you had a jam sandwich where you take two pieces of bread and jam them together.
Absolutely.
Like there were days I just didn't have a whole lot of money. Now it certainly I could have called my folks
Right.
And if I literally weren't going to make the rent, my folks probably would have come in to help me out.
Yeah.
But I didn't call my folks most of the time until occasionally I did, and I made irresponsible choices. I did all the things a 20-year-old guy does.
Yes.
So yeah, and I also think though that the difference between you're going to be a lawyer and do a shit job at a law firm as a junior partner for many years and get calls at the middle of the night because the case is coming in and doing the same thing for a fashion magazine. I think for this family, that's not the same.
Yeah.
They thought she was going to Stanford Law and becoming part of a law firm. That's very respectable. And fashion, I don't think they know about fashion either.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Judging from the way her dad is dressed, I don't think so either. It's more of a but I look at the situation, I just kind of see just little insights into Andy's character, into who Andy is a little bit, which makes it believable when she dives in full on to wear all the fashion and strut around wearing all the fashion and enjoy that life that she was ridiculing through the majority of the first part of the movie.
Yep. We're back in the offices, and Miranda walks in wearing Bill Blass, by the way, if you were curious. And
nice.
I believe there's a jewelry, she's wearing a Buddha necklace. I believe that's 100 years old and worth well over $100,000.
Jesus Christ.
The necklace she's wearing in this scene.
Okay.
Girls' recital was absolutely wonderful. They played Rachmaninoff. Everyone loved it. Everyone except me, because sadly I was not there.
Miranda, I'm so sorry.
And then we hear, and this is to the point that you've been making throughout of how Miranda is seeing her.
Yes.
She says,
"Do you know why I hired you? I always hire the same girl. Stylish, slender, of course. Worships the magazine, but so often they turn out to be, I don't know, disappointing and stupid."
I think almost all people are disappointing and stupid to Miranda.
Yeah.
With other than Nigel and probably a few others.
Yeah. But she does this little head tilt to look towards Emily's desk. And so I think she's kind of insinuating.
Oh, you're right. Yes. Yeah. Yep. She absolutely. So she's not going to, she can cut down multiple people at once. That's real. That's real skill.
That's true gift. Yes.
So you, with that impressive resume and the big speech about your so-called work ethic, I thought you would be different. I said to myself, go ahead. Take a chance. Hire the smart fat girl.
Oof, Jesus.
Terrible. Horrific. I mean, it's so, what's so funny is if you go, I don't know, would you rather be insulted with Fletcher's rant about, homophobic, anti-Semitic, or Irish bashing or whatever? Would you rather get that? Or I said to myself, hire the smart fat girl. They're terrible in an entirely different way.
Especially because Anne Hathaway's thinner than Meryl Streep in this scene. But I mean, come on. But I can deal with Fletcher's.
I think Fletcher's easier to deal with.
Yes, because it's more upfront. It's more in your face. It's combative. So you can roll, at least me personally, I can roll with that. I know other people might not be able to roll with that. But this is worse to me because this is delivered, as you said, the Clint Eastwood delivery, utterly just ripping her to shreds.
Yeah.
And right when Andy was starting to feel comfortable that she can do the job, as we saw with her placing that call or getting that call through to Miranda, she couldn't get her home. And it was a ridiculous request. But here is Miranda. And this is a horrible scene, in my opinion. This is where Miranda goes too far. This is a young girl who did everything she could to get her into that recital, but couldn't because there's a fucking tropical storm.
Yes.
And instead of being understanding of her efforts, she decides to embarrass her more. And this may be remnants of how Miranda was brought into the business as an assistant, what she endured from horrible bosses, passing it down, generational trauma, passing it down to Andy by treating her in this way at a critical moment when Andy is starting to feel confident,
I mean, but taking someone down, punishing someone for not working terribly hard and failing to accomplish something that was possible is understandable.
Of course it is. Yes.
Punishing someone who busted their ass, did everything they possibly could, and failed to accomplish something that was, in fact, totally impossible to accomplish, is abuse and cruelty and absolutely terrible. I mean, and this is why Miranda makes you really angry, and this kind of thing is terrible.
I said, this is exactly like Fletcher.
Yeah.
Bringing in the new kid and then who's had 4 or 5 hours to work on the piece, and him handing the piece newly to Andy to have him do it on the spot. This is absolutely fucking with the confidence of both Andys in both of those scenes in those movies.
Well, and in this particular case, either Miranda doesn't know that it really was, in fact, impossible to fly out of Miami at the time, which is ridiculous. And if she does know, then it is exactly what Fletcher's doing, because it is conscious, purposeful, meaningless cruelty. That's all it is. Yeah.
I think it's absolutely meaningless cruelty.
But really, honestly, the real sufferer in this situation, it is Miranda.
I had hope. My God, I live on it. Anyway, you ended up disappointing me more than any of the other silly girls.
I really did everything I could think of.
That's all.
And she's crying. Yep. She's broken Andy. They finally broke her. Both Emily and Andy tag teaming her verbally. They finally broke her in this moment because Andy was just starting to feel good.
It is so funny, like the running around montages of desperately trying to please Miranda are the drum practice sessions.
Yeah.
They're rhythmic, they're intense, they have builds, they're filled with emotion and frustration, Yeah. I mean, and again, the big difference is Andrew wanted to be a drummer. This is what he signed up for.
Right.
Andy just showed up to a job. But she's in tears. She runs out of her office. Emily can't stop her. And at this moment, which I think really is the low point, I think it's a good time to end part one. Of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts of this film. Obviously, as always, John and I had a lot of thoughts, and we didn't always agree on exactly how we interpreted Miranda or how we felt about the situation. And guess what? That's a perfect place for you to chime in. Maybe you want to visit us on our Facebook page. Just do a search for the Cine-Files, Cine_Files on X, the Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. And of course, you can subscribe to the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Comments, reviews are always welcome at all those places. If you want to listen to ad-free versions of the show or listen to our Cine-Files shorts, including what should be out right now, our review of The Devil Wears Prada 2, which will be on the free tier on patreon.com/thecine-files, also available through the subscription portal on Apple Podcasts. You can also join our advisory board. And if you want to reach me, it's SR Morris on Twitter and SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how would folks reach you?
You can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says, and come and see me on all the things I'm doing there in my life.
And I think that's it for this week. We will be back next time to enter once again into the world of high fashion with The Devil Wears Prada.